Kojima Hoshi, Taiheiki, Chapter 7, The Battle of Yoshino Castle. On the 16th day of the first month of the third year of Jenk, with 60,000 riders, the lay monk Nikkei down of Dua drew near to Yoshino Castle, wherein the prince of the great pagoda entrenched himself. When the host of the attackers looked up toward the castle from the wide pools of the Natsumi River, they beheld banners of white, red, and brocade streaming in the breeze on the mountain top, most like to clouds or flowers, while at the foot of the mountain, 5,000 or 6,000 warriors waited with glittering helmet, stars, and linked armor sleeves, vesting the ground with the semblance of damask or embroidery. Moreover, the peak was a high peak gained by a narrow way, a place off steep heights and slippery moss. Though the host of the attackers be many myriads of horsemen, not easily might they bring down such a castle. Now these two armies exchanged arrows at the hour off hair on the 18th day, and strove together mightily in battle, sending forward fresh men many times. By reason of knowing the ground, the prince's men ran out from blocked, up places, scattered apart over impassable places, fought together, fought separately, and shot their arrows terribly. Likewise the besiegers, fearless warriors from east of the barrier, looked not to the death of parent or child, counted as nothing the fall of lord or retainer, and pressed forward again and again over the corpses of the slain. During 7 days and 7 nights they fought, never stopping to rest there the Taiheiki bodies. Of those within the castle 300 were slain, and of the attackers 800. Nor can any man say how many thousands or tens of thousands were brought o' the point of death through being stricken with arrow sorix. But although green things were dyed with blood, and dead bodies lay across the paths, it seemed that the castle was in no wise weakened. The hearts of the attackers grew troubled, and they were sorely perplexed. Among the attackers, there was a man well acquainted with the mountain, the Yoshino abbot Iwajikumaro. Gathering together his men, Iwajikumaro spoke a word to them, saying, "I have heard that already the Grand Marshal of Tojo, his lordship Kanazawa Uma no Suk, has brought down Akasaka Castle and taken his way toward Mount Kungei. How mortifying it is. Being acquainted with the land, we are entrusted with an attack point at this mountain. Yet vainly have we passed several days here, and the castle still stands. We shall never capture such a stronghold from the front, but shall merely lose men. Now I believe there will be few defending warriors on Mount Kimpu behind that castle, since the enemy will place their trust in the steep cliffs. I shall choose 150-foot soldiers, men acquainted with the mountain, to steal inside the castle in the darkness, and raise a battle shout when the light of dawn appears on the Eisen Pagoda. While the castle's warriors are bewildered by the shouting, the forces in front will attack them from 3 sides, whereupon assuredly we shall bring down the castle and capture the Prince-Liv." So he commanded them, and chose 150 soldiers to go around to Mount Kimpu at dusk on that day. When the 150 had climbed up over the rocks, they beheld no defending warriors at all, but only banners bound to treetops in divers places. They stole inside the castle as it pleased them, laid their bows and arrows under trees or behind rocks, and made pillows of their helmets to await the dawn. When the hour of the signal drew near, the 50,000 horsemen in front pressed upward from 3 directions, whereupon 500 monks off Yoshino came down to the places of attack to give 177 battle against them. But while attackers and defenders fought with flying sparks off fire, driving one another up and down the mountain without regard for life, the attackers in the rear, the 150 warriors who had come around by Mount Kimpu, descended from the Eisen Pagoda, lighted fires in many places, and raised a battle shout. Powerless to stand against the enemies in front and behind, the monks of Yoshino perished each after his own fashion, cutting open their bellies and running into the blazing fires to die, or laying hold upon enemies and fighting them with their swords until attacker and attacked were dead. Truly the ditch in front became as level ground, filled up with the bodies of the slain. Suddenly the enemy in the rear pressed forward from Cat, Nomi 6 Jin's shrine to the Vajrasattva Hall, the abiding place of the Prince of the Great Pagoda. And thinking that he could not escape, the prince tranquilly clothed his body in a new suit of scarlet braided armor over an underdress of red brocade, tied the cords of his dragon, head helmet, girded on a short sword, and burst into the middle of the enemy host with 20 mighty men of valor round about him. Although the attackers' numbers were great, they were defeated by this small force that drove them back in every direction and raised the dust like black smoke as they cut them with their swords, until like leaves scattering in the wind, they ran away to the gorges on the four sides. When the enemy had fled, the prince gathered Tojdur his warriors in the courtyard off Vajrasattva Hall, where he caused his outer curtain to be pulled up, that they might drink together for the last time. 7 arrows were lodged in his armor, and blood spurted from his upper arm and cheek like a waterfall. Yet he did not pull at the arrows or wipe away the blood, but tipped the large saucer 3 times, seated on an animal skin. Yet they drew not near to the person of Indra, but thereby was Asura brought down. One, truly he was most like to the valiant Fan Kayoi, who opened the curtain-stow glare at the Hsiang prince from the courtyard, when the lords of Han and Chu met at Hung. Men, and Hsiang Po and Hsiang Chuang of Chu danced the sword dance. Now as the fighting in front raged furiously, the battle cries of enemies and friends mingled together. Into the prince's presence came Murakami Hikashire Yashitaru, looking to have striven against many a foe, with 16 arrows drooping in Hai's armor like lingering winter grasses bowing before the wind on a withered moor. Murakami spoke to the prince, saying, "For these several hours have I fought at the second Gatine front, since regrettably the enemy has broken through the outer gate. I come here now, because I have heard the sound of drinking Gian, the prince's abiding place. I do not believe that we can prevail at this castle, since the enemy's strength is beyond resistance, and the hearts of our warriors are dispirited. His Highness must seek to break through in one direction before the enemy's strength spreads to other places. Yet if no warrior remains behind to fight, the enemy will perceive that he has escaped, and there will be no Ento there pursuing after him. I ask His Highness most respectfully to give him his underdress of brocade, and likewise his armor, that by assuming his guise I may deceive the enemy and substitute my life for his." So he spoke, but the prince answered him, saying, "How can such a thing be? If we Arito die, let it be in the same place. Battle against the Eastern warriors with the famous struggle in which the Hindu god Indra defeated the hosts of the demon Asura. When that great rivals, Han Kao Tsu and Hsiang Yug of Chu, were meeting together at Hung Men, Hsiang Chuang drew his sword and began a dance which seemed likely to end in the murder of Kao Tsu. Hsiang Po, who was also dancing, was protecting Kao Tsu by the motions of his body. Hearing of what was happening, Fan Kayoi of Han hurried to the scene and confronted Hsiang Yui angrily. The crisis passed when Hsiang Yi gave Fan wine to drink in admiration of his courage. Chapter 7 Then with rough words Yashitaru spoke again, saying, "Strange indeed. Did Kao Tsu of Han turn away his face when Kai H. Sin begged to assume his guise to deceive the eyes of Chu at the encirclement of Yong, Yang? How regrettable it is that His Highness thinks to subdue the realm with such a weak spirit as this. Let him take off his armor quickly," and he untied the overgirdle of the prince's armor. Then perhaps the prince thought in his heart that it ought to be so, for he took off and exchanged his armor and underdress, saying, "If I live, I shall offer prayers on your behalf. If both of us are smitten by the enemy, we shall follow the same path to the nether regions." And weeping, he fled away southward from before Katino Mijin Shrine. Yashitaru mounted up to the high tower at the second gate, where he watched until the prince had fled far away. When the time was right, he cut off the board from a window in the tower to show his person, naming his name with a mighty shout. "T am the prince of the blood Sanan of first rank, minister of military affairs and second son of Go, Daigo Tenno, the 95th Mikado since Jimmu Tenno, the august scion of Amaterasu Omikami. Beaten down by rebels, I destroy myself to avenge my grievances in the afterlife. Mark me well, that you may know how to rip open your bellies when fortune fails the military. Stripping away his armor, he cast it down from the tower. Next he took off the narrow-sleeved coat of his underdress, fashioned of a woven double thickness of raw Angelost silk, and clad only in brocade trousers, he pierced his fair white skin with a dagger. He cut in a straight line from left to right, flung out his bowels onto the board of the tower, thrust his sword into his mouth, and fell forward onto his face. When theateckers before and behind saw this, every man thought in his heart, "Aha! The prince of the great Pagadahas killed himself. I must take his head before the others." But while they broke the four-sided encirclemento gather in one place, the prince fled away toward the Tenakawa River. Just at this time, 500 followers of the Yoshino abbot came around from the south, men well acquainted with the land the Taiheiki for many years, who made a circle and sought by superior numbers to cut off the prince's road. But together with the prince there rode one Hyde Kurando Yashitaka, a son of Murakami Hikishire Yashidaru. When this Yashitaka had beheld his father Yashidaru preparing to take his life on the tower in the prince's place, he had galloped there to die with him. Yet strongly his father admonished him, saying, "Although such is the proper thing as between parent and child, live on a while, that you may remain with the prince to the end." Wherefore Yashitaka fled with the prince, prolonging his brief life. Now Yashitaka alone stood forth against the enemy, thinking, "The prince's peril is most extreme. He cannot escape unless I die here." He cut the knees of the pursuing enemy horses, so that they dropped down, and smote the sides of their necks, so that the riders fell off. And for an hour he held back the 500 horsemen on the narrow winding path. But although Yashitaka's loyalty was like a rock, his body was not made of metal. Arrows wounded his flesh in more than places, shot by enemies surrounding him. And doubtless he thought, "Though I die, it shall not be at an enemy's hands." For he ran into a thicket of small bamboo, ripped open his belly, and perished. But while father and son of the Murakami were dying in battle to hold back the enemy, the prince escaped from the tiger jaws and fled away toward Mount Koya. Degrees now Daeon, the lay monk of Dua, deceived when Murakami cut his belly in the prince's stead, took Murakami's head to the Kapi, Tal to be inspected by the lords of Rokuhara. But these said, "It is the head of another." Nor did they hang it up at the prison gate, but merrily buried it beneath the mauson, the place of the dead. Then Daeon's heart was troubled within him, that, although he had fought loyally until the fall of the castle of Yoshino, he had allowed the prince of the great pagoda to escape. Soon he advanced against Mount Keiya, and camping at the great pagoda sought to find out the abiding place of the prince, but all the monks of the Kikai monastery concealed him. Wherefore, when Daeon had passed 5 or 6 days vainly in this manner, he went forth toward Chihaya Castle. The Battle of Chihaya Castle. When the armies from Akasaka and Yoshino had sallied to join themselves to the 800,000 attackers of Chihaya Castle, then like a show place, or wrestling ring the castle waist encompassed about by 1,000,000 riders, who filled every foot and inch of ground for 2 or 3 leagues on all sides. Thicker than plumes of pampas grass on an autumnal moor were their banners, fluttering and streaming in the breeze. As morning dew on withered herbs were their weapons, glittering and gleaming in the sunlight. The mountain trembled at the advance of the mighty host, the axis of the earth shattered in an instant by their battle shout. Valiant indeed was the heart of Kusunoki, who feared not the great enemy, but defended his castle with fewer than 1,000 men, depending on nobody and expecting nothing. Now there were deep chasms eastward and westward of this castle, so that a man might not climb up, while northward and southward it stood over against Mount Kongain, a region of high and steep peaks. Yet the attackers looked up in it scornfully, for it was a small castle, barely 700 feet high and not a league around. At first, for 1 or 2 days, they forbore to build positions against it, nor prepared their attack, but with upheld shields climbed Tojthra as far as the gate, each striving to be first. Undismayed, the warriors within the castle threw down mighty rocks from the tower tops to smash the enemy shields to pieces. And while the attackers were afflicted thereby, the defenders shot them terribly with arrows, so that they fell down from the slopes on 4 sides, one on top of the other. In one day the killed and wounded were 5 or 6,000 men. Wherefore, when the battle commissioner Nagasaki Shirai Seaman No. J6 inquired concerning them, 12 scribes recorded their names day and night for 3 days without laying aside their brushes. Thereupon it was commanded, henceforth any man will be the Taiheiki punished who seeks to do battle without the permission of the Grand Marshal. And the hosts gave over fighting for a while to make themselves positions. Now Kanazawa Uma no Suke, the Grand Marshal from Akasaka, spoke a word to the Grand Marshals Daibutsu and Oshi, saying, "By no means was it the valor of our warriors which brought down Akasaka Castle. Divining the state of things within the castle, we stopped the water, whereupon quickly Thenemi bowed before us. I do not think there can be water on the summit of such trifling hill as this, nor is there a conduit to bring it from another mountain. Yet it seems that there is an abundancy of it inside the castle. Assuredly, in some way, they draw it nightly from the stream flowing at the bottom off the cliff to the east. So please by all means speak a word to 1 or 2 of your captains, such as will prevent the drawing of this water." So he spoke, and the 2 grand marshals agreed that it ought to be so. They made the Nagoya governor of Echizen the grand marshal of 3,000 horsemen, who encamped hard by the water, pulled obstacles onto the paths that men would follow from the castle, and awaited the coming of the enemy. By nature Kusunoki was a person valor-rousing spirit and subtle in devisings. Considering the supply of water when first he built this castle, he found on the mountain the springs called the secret waters of the 5 places, where wandering monks drank secretly when they crossed the peaks, places that in one night gave up 200 gallons of water. Never had those springs run dry, however severe the drought, so that assuredly they would always moisten men's mouths. Moreover, he attached joined gutters to the eaves of the battle offices constructed in several hundred places, so that every raindrop falling from the eaves might be brought into the troughs, and he laid red earth on the bottoms of the troughs, resolved to lose no water. For again he thought, with this water I shall endure chapter 7, even if no rain falls for 50 or 60 days. But how can rain fail to fall? This was no ordinary intelligence. Therefore no man went forth from the castle to draw water. Yet nightly the warriors guarding the stream waited eagerly, thinking, Now, but oh be sure this was only in the beginning, for gradually their hearts grew negligent, their spirits lagged, and they gave over their watchfulness, saying, Assuredly they will not draw this water. Then Kusunoki chose 300 mighty men of valor to go forth from the castle in the darkness of night. And advancing out of a concealing mist before the eastern clouds were lightenedfully, these struck down more than 20 of the men beside the water, nor could the Nagoya governor of Echizen stand against the fury of their attack, but fell back toward his former camp. Though the myriads of the attackers' hosts clamored to join themselves to Nagoya, no man of them could gallop to his side, by reason of the hills and valleys barring their way. Wherefore Kusunoki men retired tranquilly to the castle with Nagoya's abandoned banners and curtains. The next day the defenders hung out a banner on the castle's front gate, one which bore a crest of 3 umbrellas, and likewise a curtain with the same crest. They laughed aloud, saying, Both of these have we received from his lordship of the Nagoya family, yet since they bear his crest they are of no use to others. We would like to have his men come in to take them. Thereupon there was no warrior of the realm who did not say with all the others, Ah! His lordship of the Nagoya has been dishonored. The men of the Nagoya were greatly angered. "Let every man of our force perish at the castle gate," they commanded. Their 5,000 warriors, resolved to die, rode again and again over the bodies of the slain without regard for rocks and arrows, pulled away obstacles, broke them into pieces, and camitoed the base of the far side of the ditch. But although their hearts were valiant, they could not climb up that high and steep side. They, the Taiheiki, stood vainly glaring at the castle, helpless to do aught but swallow their anger. Just at that time, the warriors within the castle let fall 10 great trees laid down flat above the ditch in readiness, by which 400 or 500 attackers were smitten, who fell over dead like chessmen. And while the remainder clamored discomfited, seeking to escape the falling trees, the castle warriors shot at them according to their will from towers on all sides, until but few of the 5,000 remained. So that day's fighting was ended. Although the resolution of Nagoya's warriors had been most fierce, they had done no glorious deeds, but had been grievously smitten by the enemy. Wherefore men gossiped endlessly, saying, "Ah, loss has been added to shame." Perhaps attackers thought in their hearts that Kusunoki might not be despised, since his manner of fighting was not as that of others. For no man of them sought to press forward boldly to attack as in the beginning. Nagasaki Shiro Seaman no, Jay commanded the host, saying, "In attacking this castle we but cause men toprish vainly. Let us besiege it until its stores of food are used up." Now when the fighting was stopped, the warriors' spirits were wearied beyond endurance by lack of occupation. They brought down linked verse teachers of the Moto school from the capital and began a linked verse of 10,000 stanzas, whereof the opening stanza on the first day was composed by Nagasaki Kuro Seaman, no, J6. Forestalling the rest, show your triumphant colors, O wild cherry. Cud 6 human no, J6 added a supporting stanza. RH Tempest indeed will prove the blossom's foe. To be sure, the words of both these stanzas were skillfully elusive, likewise the form was superior. But was it not inauspicious to call their own side blossoms and compare the enemy to a tempest? So indeed it was later understood. Perhaps because no other diversion was available to the hosts who had left off fighting according to the Grand Marshal's order, they spent the days at playing checkers or backgammon, and passed the 185 nights with tea judging and poetry contests. And these things were a torment too. The warriors inside the castle, who lacked all amusement. Soon, Masashide said, "If it be thus, we shall practice a deceit upon the attackers to open their eyes." With rubbish, he made 20 or 30 figures of a man's stature, clad them in helmets and armor, armed them with weapons, and set them up behind folding shields at the foot off the castle in the night. In the rear, he stationed 500 mighty men of valor to raise a great battle shout when the dawn mists began to bright. "Aha! They have come out of the castle," said the besiegers at the sound of the shouting. "Assuredly has fortune deserted them, that in desperation they emerge in this way." So they spoke, each striving to be the first to attack. When the warriors from the castle had shot a few arrows, all went up to the castle before the great host approached, but the false men remained in the shelter of the trees. And the attackers gathered together to smite the false men, thinking that they were warriors. After the enemy had been drawn close according to his plans, Masashide let fall 40 or 50 mighty boulders all at once, killing more than 300 of the men assembled in one place, and sorely wounding more than 500. And the fighting being ended, the attackers saw that the warriors of iron facing them were not men, but only straw figures. There was no glory for those who had been killed by the enemy's rocks and arrows while attacking these. And how cowardly were those who had trembled before such figures, not daring to advance. No man failed to mock at them, both at those that had died and at those that had held back. Thereafter the besiegers left off fighting gutturally, nor did the hosts of the provinces do any deeds off merit, but only looked up at the castle vainly. An unknown person posted a parody of an ancient verse in front of a grand marshal's camp, saying, Must one merely gaze at it from afar? The Kusunoki tree on Kazuraga's Takama Peak. The Taiheiki then to their camps, the grand marshals summoned women of pleasure from Eguchi and Kanzaki to amuse them in divers manners, for they wearied of watching the castle without fighting. It happened that 2 grand marshals of the Nagoya family were encamped together hard by the attack point, the lay monk of Tatami and his nephew Hyego, no, Suk. On a certain day, each of these killed the other with his sword, where they played at backgammon in front of some courtesans, for perhaps they fell into trifling dispute over the spots on dice. Whereupon, without cause, their retainers began to stab one another, until quickly more than 200 men were struck down. Beholding these things from inside the castle, the defenders mocked at the attackers, saying, "See how these destroy themselves, punished by heaven for setting their faces against the master of the 10 good acts." Truly this was no ordinary occurrence, but a strange and curious thing, such as might have been the work of evil spirits. They summoned 500 carpenters from the capital, gathered together timbers 6, 7, 10, and 11 inches thick, and made a bridge 5 yards wide and more than 5 yards long. When the bridge was made, they tied on 2,000 or 3,000 great ropes and wound them up with a pulley, so that the bridge fell on top off the castle's cliff. How skillfully it was done. Even such must have been the cloud ladder of Lupan. Registered no 5 or 6,000 warriors went out onto the bridge toad vents against the castle, men of bold and hasty heart, each striving to be first. Truly it seemed that the castle must be brought down. But Kusunoki's men threw lighted torches onto the bridge, piling them up like stacks of firewood, for doubtless they had made them the ruler of Chu attack an enemy castle during the era of warring states, 403,220. 1 BC, ready beforehand, and with a pump-it-outle like a flowing waterfall. As the beams of the bridge took fire, the canyon wind fanned and spread the flames. The rash warriors who had thought to cross the bridge were scorched by the great flames when they advanced, yet behind them pressed the mighty host, heedless of trouble ahead. Nor might they leap away toward the sides, for their hearts were affrighted by the deep chasm and towering cliffs. They clamored and jostled, not knowing what to do, until the beams burned through and the bridge fell down abruptly to the bottom of the chasm. And then all together these thousands of warriors fell down in a heap into the fierce fire, where every man of them burned to death. Even so must be the torment of sinners in the 8 great Buddhist hells, transfixed on sword trees and sword mountains, or burned by fierce fires and molten iron baths. There were more than 7,000 outlaws hidden in mountains and valleys, men of Yoshino, Tatsugawa, Yuta, and Achino, Kari, assembled together by command of the prince of the Great Pagoda. When these had blocked off the roads traversed by the besiegers of Chihaya, the Storsov, the warriors of the provinces, were used up quickly, and men and horses grew weak from hunger. Wherefore, suffering sorely, the attackers turned back toward their homes in groups of 100 or 200 riders. The outlaws waited to kill them in many advantageous places, being well acquainted with the land, so that no man can say how many of them perished during every day and night. If one chanced to escape alive, he lost his horse, his armor, and all his garments. Daily in every direction men fold hiding their nakedness with tattered straw coats, or revealing their shame with plant leaves wound around their loins. Never was there such a disgraceful thing. Truly in this generation were lost all the precious heirlooms of the warriors of the land of Japan, the armor and swords and daggers. Now in a vain dispute 2 men of the Nagoya had perished, the lay Munkov Tatemi and Hyego, no, Suk. Likewise was it so of the other armies, that when a father waskilled, the son cut off his hair to become a monk, disappearing from the camp. And when a lord was wounded, his vassals ministered to him and took him away the Taiheiki home. Though it was said that there were 800,000 horsemen in the beginning, those who remained were but 100,000. Nita Yashasada receives an imperial mandate. There was a resident of the province of Keizuke called Battle Yoshino, a scion of the Minamoto descended in the 17th generation from Hachiman Tard Yashi, who went forth against Mount Kange from the rear, obedient to the demand of the Kanto. Truly in those days the House of Terra ruled the realm, and the four seas bowed before its strength. But may not Yashasada have held certain thoughts in his mind? It came about that he summoned his steward, the lay monk Funada Yashimasa, saying, "In ancient times the House of Minamoto served the court by quieting the disturbances of rebellious Heishi, and even so the Terra family struck down those Genji who transgressed against their masters. Yet through my unworthiness the Minamoto have exchanged prosperity for decay, and for many years our family has lacked power in the realm. Is it not regrettable? Although I have not failed to think of restoring the prosperity of our house, I have remained silent through fear of the Kanto's strength. But know from the deeds of the Sagami lay monk, one may know that his destruction is not far off. If I were to receive an imperial mandate, I would go home and gather together warriors to comfort the heart of the former sovereign. Is there no means of receiving a command from the prince of the great pagoda?" Readily Funada lay monk assented to his words, saying respectfully, "The prince of the great pagoda hides himself in the mountains hard by. I shall devise a means of obtaining a command quickly." And he went back to his abiding place. On the morrow Funade sent forth 30 of his retainers in the guise of outlaws to climb up to Kazuragi Mountain in the night. Then in the concealing mists before dawn, he fought against these 7 Minamoto no Yashi, 1,040. 1,108 was one of the most renowned of the Genji warriors. He fought so valiantly as a youth that he was called Hachiman Tard, the eldest son of Hachiman, the god of war. His men, leading a force as though fleeing, and for an hour chasing them and driving them back, until the outlaws of Yuta and Achino, Kari came down from their mountains to render aid, saying, "Truly they are friendly outlaws." But when these drew near, they were encompassed about by Funada's force, and 11 of them were captured. Funada untied the bondsaf, the captivess, and spoke to them secretly, saying, "TT is by no means to kill you that I have deceived and captured you in this manner. His lordship of the Nida seeks to return home to his province to raise the august standard, but he can attack without a command from the prince of the great pagoda. I have captured you to learn the prince's abiding place. If your lives are precious, let a guide lead my messenger to him." Rejoicing greatly, the outlaws said, "If such is your desire, it will be very easy thing." It was not a princely command after all, but a mandate from the sovereign himself, saying, "I proclaim the words of the emperor received by him. Diffusing virtue, the enlightened sovereign governs the myriad lands. Quelling disorders, the loyal warrior pacifies the four seas." Of recent years, the teacher of the law Takatoki and his followers have despised the decrees of the court, willfully wielded a treasonable power, and done many evil deeds. Yet assuredly, the day of heaven's punishment is come. Deep indeed is our gratitude, since now you seek to gather together men of war to end our years of distress, nor will your reward be inconsequential. Quickly devise a plan to chastise the Kanto, that peace may return to the realm. The decree of His Imperial Majesty, given on the 11th day of the 2nd month off the 3rd year of Jenk III, by the lesser marshal off the left, to his lordship Nidakatare. The Taiheiki Yashasada rejoiced beyond measure at these words honoring his house. And the next day he hastened toward his home province, feigning illness. Now to Rokuhara there came Mensying. For this reason and that, the foremost of the fighting forces are returning to their provinces. Likewise the roads are cut off, whereon stores of food must be carried. And therefore the besiegers of Chihaya Castle have lost heart greatly. Thereupon Utsunamiya was sent to join the attackers with more than 1,000 riders of the Kai and Kiawara, fresh men whose spirits were still undaunted. At once these climbed as far as the edge of the castle's ditch, where they attacked for more than 10 days, never retreating by day or by night. And they weakened the castle defenses by destroying the ditch, side obstacles. Yet not even the men of the Kai and Kiawara could soar through the heavens, since they could not borrow the body of King Deerfoot, registered, nor might they split the mountain in twain, lacking the strength of the Lord of Lung. Po. Degrees registered next the attackers entrusted the fighting to the foremost warriors alone, while those in the rear sought to undermine the mountain with spades and mattocks. And when 3 days and nights had passed, the front tower was brought down with their digging. It had been well to stop fighting Andig in the beginning, all said regretfully. Beautiful though they dug eagerly, not easily might they undermine a great mountain more than a league around. The rising of Akamatsu. Now to the ears of the lay monk Akamatsu Jiro, and Shin Kama tidings of the strength of Kusanoki's castle, and of the capital weakness. He went forth from Koknoa Castle, in the province of Ha registered King Kalmasada, Pada, the subject of a legend which appears in the Ninoki 6 and other Buddhist sutras. The offspring of an Indian king and lioness, he had wings on his body and deer hooves in place of feet. Ung Po was a mythical land of giants. The Lord of Lung, Po was presumably its Rima, blocked the Sanand 6 and Sanyad's roads, and encamped between Yama, No, Sato and Nashi, Gahara. And when armies from Bizan, Bichai, Bingo, Aki, and Soe gathered together at the Mitsuishi post station and chased away his warriors from Yama, No, Sato, for they sought to pass by, that they might go to the capital according to the orders of Rokuhara. Enshin's son, the Akamatsu governor of Chikuzan, came down against them from Mount Funasaka, capturing more than 20 of their chieftains. Enshin did not raise his hand against these captives, but dealt with them kindly. And thereupon, with grateful heart, its 6 Yamato no Jurd, registered turned away abruptly from the military to join himself to the imperial cause. In the beginning, Ito made a fortress on Mitsuishi Mountain above his dwelling place, and afterward he took possession of Bear Mountain, where he gathered warriors together. In a battle, he defeated the protector of Bizan, Kaji no Genjiro Seaman, so that this protector fled away toward Kojima. Thereafter the roads to the western lands were cut off, and there was great disorder in the central provinces. Soon Akamatsu brought down the castle of Takata Hidego, Nasuk, since all was secure behind him, where its 6 guarded against forces coming up from the west. Nor did this lay Munkrestha's feet even briefly thereafter, but attacked toward the Sanyede road. Warriors on his way galloped to join themselves to him, until quickly his followers became 7,000 horsemen, and it was in his mind to destroy Rokuhara with this army. But first he built a castle at a mountain temple called Maya, northward of Hyogo, to be a refuge to men and horses in time of need. Maya was but 20 leagues removed from the enemy at Rokuhara. Doi and Tokuno raised their banners. The lords of Rokuhara consulted together, saying, "Let us send an army from Shikoku against Maya Castle," for the mighty Utsunomiya was gone to Chihaya Castle, and the armies of the western provinces were cut off by Ate. Yet on the 4th day of the 2nd, the Taiheiki month, a fast messenger was dispatched from the province of Iyo, TM, saying, raising their banners on the side of the court, Doi-jure and Tokunade Yasubure advanced toward Tosa with warriors of this province. Whereupon on the 12th day of last month, the military governor of Nagato, Keizuke no Suktakino, came here with more than 300 ships of war, and fought against them at Hashiga, Oka. Ice, Menoff, Nagato, and Soe were defeated, nor can any say how many of them were killed or wounded. Moreover, no man has seen Takinao or his son. All the warriors of Shikoku have joined themselves to Doi and Tokune, that with more than 6,000 riders prepare boats at Utatsu and Imahari harbors, seeking to attack the capital. Pray take care, so indeed it was reported. The former sovereign goes to Funano. Now truly were the military hearts as hearts of men treading on thin ice, and the Kanto's peril was as that of one looking into an abyss. For still the fighting in the home provinces continued, and daily Shikoku and the western provinces grew more disturbed. Orders were sent to Oki no Hagen, saying, "The present disturbances in the realm have all arisen in the heart of the former sovereign. Take heed that you guard him well, lest traitors steal in to carry him away." And Hagen called together the H6J vassals and stewards of nearby provinces, established strict day watches and night patrols, locked the palace gates, and guarded the former emperor zealously. It came about that the last third of the intercalary second month was the watch of Sasaki Fujina no Hogen Yoshitsuna, the guard of the middle gate. In his heart Yoshitsuna thought, would that I could carry away this sovereign and raise a revolt. Yet his mind was troubled, for there was no way of telling his thought to the emperor. On a certain night the emperor sent wine to Yoshitsuna, a court lady. And receiving it, Yoshitsuna took his opportunity to speak secretly through that lady, saying, "Perhaps his majesty has not yet been informed of it, but Kusunoki Hide Masashige has built a castle at Mount Kangei, where he shuts himself up." A host of more than 1 million horsemen from the eastern provinces began an attack against Kusunoki early in the second month. Yet the castle is so strong that already the attackers make as if to withdraw. Moreover, its 6 Yamato no Jirei has built a castle at a place called Mitsuishi in Bizen, blocking the Sanyede road. And in Harima Thele monk Akamatsu Enshin has advanced as far as the province of Setsu with a mandate from the prince of the Great Pagoda, and is encamped at a place called Maya, northward of Hidgo, where with more than 2,000 horsemen he threatens the capital, captures land, and makes his power felt in the neighboring provinces. In Shikoku Doijire and Tokune, Yasaburo of the Kono family have raised their bannerson the imperial cause, defeating the military governor of Nagato, Kazuke no Suktakino, who has fled to an unknown place, and all the warriors of Shikoku have joined themselves to them. Some say that they have made ready large vessels to come here to fetch his majesty, while others say that they will first attack the capital. Now truly, I believe that the hour of his majesty's deliverance is at hand. Let him go out in secret while I guard the gate, set forth in a boat from Chiberi harbor, fare with the wind to a bay in Izumo or Hoki, and entrust himself to a suitable warrior. Though I speak with awe, I shall feign to go forward to attack him, yet quickly will I join myself to him." Hearing these words from the court lady, the Supreme Highness thought, perhaps he speaks deceitfully, and he presented that court lady to Yoshitsuna that he might know his mind. Thereupon Yoshitsuna showed more and more that his heart was loyal, for he thought that he was honored beyond his station, and likewise he cherished the lady with deep devotion. At last the former emperor commanded Yoshitsuna, saying, It is so, go before us to the province of Izumo, win over a family of goodwill, and come to fetch us." And thereupon Yoshitsuna crossed to Izumo, where he talked persuasively to Enya Hogen. Yet the Taiheiki Enya shut up Yoshitsuna, nor suffered him to return to the province of Oki. For a time, the Supreme Highness awaited Yoshitsuna. But when his coming was long delayed, he thought, "We shall go forth alone, trusting to fortune." In the darkness of a certain night, he got into Lady Sammy's litter, causing it to be said, "The lady must depart from the palace, by reason that the time of her eeing in draws near." 1. And in secret he went forth from the palace, with none but the Rokuj lesser marshal to accompany him, Tadaki no Asan. Soon the emperor put away the litter, lest men's hearts be excited to wonder, nor were other bearers to bear it. And then the gracious Son of Heaven of the 10 good acts stained his august feet with the dust where straw sandals trod, and personally walked over the muddy ground. How shocking it was. With uncertain steps the Supreme Highness wandered over the paths of a vast moor, lost in the moon, awaiting dark, for it was the 23rd day of the 3rd month. "Surely we have come a very great distance," he thought, yet faintly to his ears there came the sound of water falling in the mountains behind. Again he thought fearfully, "May not men come pursuing us? And let us go forward, be it but a single step. Yet as in a dream, he stood in one place. When might he have learned the manner of walking? With unquiet heart, Tadaki pulled at the former sovereign's hands and pushed at his hips, striving earnestly to come to the harbor before dawn, until his body and spirit grew weary, and he wandered lost with the emperor through the dews of the moor paths. But when the night was far spent, their ears heard the sound of a temple bell, lonesome in the lonesome moonlight, coming as from a village near at hand. And making it a guide, they drew near to that place. Tadaki no Asan knocked at the gate of a certain house, asking, "What is the way to Chiberi Harbor?" A man of common appearance came out to them from within. Beholding the Supreme Highness, he said, 12 the birth of a child within the palace would defile it. Although it is not 4 miles from here to Chiberi Harbor, I am sure that you will lose the way where the road divides to the north and south. I will go with you to be your guide. So he spoke, since doubtless there was sympathy in his heart, though he was but an ignorant countryman. And quickly he brought them to the harbor, bearing the Supreme Highness lightly on his back. As the drum made known the beginning of the 5th watch, this man who had become their guide ran around the harbor busily. With soft words, he spoke to the master of a merchant vessel, making ready to row back to the province of Hoki, put the Supreme Highness into his cabin, and making his farewells remained behind. Surely this was no ordinary mortal. When the emperor ruled the realm again, he asked for him through all of the province that he might reward him, but in the end there was none who said, "Tam he." The dawn being come, the boatmen loosed their ropes, raised their sail in the fair wind, and rowed away from the harbor. The master of the vessel bowed respectfully in front of the cabin C4 doubtless. He thought that the Supreme Highness was not an ordinary man. To furnish a boat at such a time is the greatest honor of our lives, he said. We shall steer our vessel toward any place that you command us to approach. So he spoke, with a face as that of an honest man. Thereupon Tadaki no Asan called this master close, thinking that it would be ill to practice a deception upon him. Now that you have guessed this much, what is there to hide? He said to him. He who is within the cabin is truly the lord of the land of Japan, the gracious emperor of the 10 good acts. No doubt you have heard that he has been shut up since last year in the dwelling place of Oki no Hagen, but I have stolen him away from there. Please take your boat quickly to a good harbor in Izumo or Hoki. I will surely make you a warrior and the master of an estate if fortune looks kindly upon his majesty. Then the master's face became as that of one glad at heart. Swiftly the Taiheiki he sent his boat forward, steering skillfully his way and that, with his sails slanted in the wind. When they had traversed the surface of the sea for 20 or 30 leagues, they saw 10 vessels hurrying toward Izumo and Hoki, their sails spread in the fair wind. They were not craft of Tsukushi, nor yet merchant vessels, but boats wherewith Oki no Hagen Kiyotaka pursued the Supreme Highness. Beholding them, the master of the boat said, "Please hide yourselves here, since we cannot stand against them." He put the Supreme Highness and Tadaki no Asan in the bottom of the boat beneath piled bales of dried fish, such as are called a mono, and the sailors stood on top of them pushing their oars. Within a while after, a pursuing vessel drew near to the august boat, and men entered its cabin, searching vainly in divers places. They spoke to the master of the boat, saying, "Well, he is not on this boat." Has a suspicious looking boat passed your? Tilda the master answered them, saying, "There were 2 men ridingi in a boat that set forth from Chiberi Harbor at the hour of the rat last night. They bore the guise of nobles from the capital, the one wearing a ceremonial cap, and the other an informal standing cap. That boat is perhaps 5 or 6 leagues ahead of us now. There can be no doubt about it," they said. "Let us one go forward quickly in our boats." Anthe put up their sails, corrected their direction, and drew away rapidly. Then with tranquil hearts those in the emperor boat thought, "TT is well." But looking back over the wave paths again, they beheld more than 100 pursuing vessels, that but a league distant came toward them like flying birds. The master took up his oar below the spread sail and pushed, shouting loudly, as though to travel 10,000 leagues in an instant, yet the boat would not move forward, for the wind had ceased its blowing and the current ran against them. And the sailors raised a great clamor, saying, "What shall we do?" Thereupon the Supreme Highness came out from the bottom of 197 the boat, took a bit of Buddha, bone from his amulet, and setit afloat on the waves in a piece of paper. May it not be that the dragon god accepted it? At once the wind shifted on the surface of the sea, so that the emperor boat was sent eastward and pursuing vessels were blown back toward the west. Thus indeed did the Supreme Highness escape as from tiger's jaws. Soon the boat came to Nawa Harbor in the province of Hoki. Tadaki Noa-san went forth alone to inquire of men, saying, "In this place, who has become known as a wielder of bow and arrow?" And one passing by stopped and said, "In this place there is a person called Nawa Matadare Nagatoshi. He is not the most famous of warriors, but his house is wealthy, his kinsmen are many, and he is a man broad of mind." So he spoke, and Tadaki Noa-san asked him many things carefully. Then quickly Tadaki sent a messenger to Nagatoshi, saying, "The Supreme Highness has escaped to this harbor from the dwelling place of Oki no Hogan. It is in his heart Thaith will call upon you, because men have spoken to him of your bravery. Say quickly, Wetherer, not you will be relied upon." Just at that time, Nawa Matadare had called Tojthur his kinsman to drink wine at a banquet. Hearing the messenger's words, he could not say yes or no, for his heart was troubled within him. But his younger brother came forward, Kadare Seaman, no, J6 Nagashige, saying, "From ancient times until the present, the desire of men has been for honor and advancement. Is it not the greatest honor of our lives, that the gracious Emperor of the 10 good acts places his trust in us? Will it not bring us glory among generations to come, even though we perish in the battlefield? You must resolve to help him at once." So he spoke, and all agreed that it ought Tobe Eso, Matatero, and the 20 and more kinsmen with him in that place. Nagashige spoke again, saying, "If it is thus, we must make ready quickly to give battle, for assuredly pursuers will follow the Supreme Highness to attack him. I will go to fetch him to Funano Mountain at once, and do you likewise take your way to Funano?" The Taiheiki Herrenforth, settling his armor on his body. And 5 of his kinsmen threw on their corselets, tightened their laces, and went together with him to fetch the Supreme Highness. There was Nolater wherein the Supreme Highness might ride, so sudden was the affair. But Nagashige wound fresh straw matting around his armor, put the Supreme Highness onto his back, and took him into Funano like a flying bird. Meanwhile, Nagatoshi sent men around to the house of that place, proclaiming, "Even now has Lord Nagatoshi resolved to transport stores of food to Funano. He will present 500 coppers to every person who carries up a load of grain from his storehouse." 5,000 or 6,000 laborers came from the 10 directions to carry away the grain, none willing to be outdone, wherefore in a single day they carried more than 24,000 bushels. And Nagatoshi gave away all his family treasures to the commoners and farmers, burnt his house, and galloped to Funanoto guard the emperor with 150 horsemen. Now there was one Nawa Shichard, a kinsman of Nagatoshi, who was a person subtle in military devisings. This Shichir 6 made banners of 500 pieces of white linen, aged them with smoke from pine needles that he burned, and painted them with the crests of all the warriors of neighboring places. And he put them under trees and on the tops of peaks, so that they blew in the gale from the peaks in great numbers, fluttering in the camps as though a mighty host filled Upal the mountain. The Battle of Funano. On the 29th day, Okino Hagen and Sasaki Danjay Seaman, no, J6 came against Nawa from the north and south with a force of more than 3,000 horsemen. Funano was a mountain that towered up toward Grand Mountain on the north, and on the other 3 sides rose high above the land around it, a lofty peak, compassed about by white clouds far down toward its base. But no ditch had yet been dug at the castle, nor had any wall been erected, for it was a very sudden matter. The defenders had merely cut down a few great trees to serve as obstacles, and broken off roof tiles from houses to use as barricades. When 3,000 attackers were come halfway up the mountain, they looked into the castle. Thickly growing pines and oaks hid the numbers of the defenders in a dense shade. Yet there were 400 or 500 banners to be seen, fluttering in the clouds and shining in the sun. They feared to advance, thinking, "Indeed, all the warriors of neighboring places have galloped here. We cannot attack them with our force alone." For their part, the warriors inside the castle lay hidden in the shadows, so that the enemy might not know their numbers, now and again sending out a bowmanto shoot a distant arrow. And so they passed the time. Meanwhile, Sasaki Danjo's seaman, no, J6, the leader of the attackers on one side, had encamped far back at the base of the mountain, when suddenly an arrow flying from an unknown place pierced his right eye, so that he fell down dead. And thereupon his 500 followers changed color, unwilling to give battle. Moreover, Sato no Zenji, who had advanced toward their of the castle with more than 800 horsemen, rolled up his banner, took off his helmet, and surrendered. But Oki no Hogan, who knew nothing of these things, thought, "Assuredly the forces in the rear are drawing close now," and fought against the outer gate without stopping, sending Gian fresh warriors one after another. As the sun made ready to hide itself behind the western mountains, suddenly the sky darkened, the wind blew, a great rain fell, and thunder rumbled as though to destroy the mountain. Trembling with fear, the attackers crowded together under this tree and that, whereupon tarred seaman no J6 Nagashige and Kajire Nagataka, Nawamatadar 6 Nagatoshi's younger brothers, sent forth archers on the right and left, who shot them mercilessly. And when the enemy's shield wavered, they drew their swords and sprang forward, shouting, "Hurrah! They are ours," and they drove back the 1,000 attackers at the front, so that they fell down to the bottoms of the gorges. No man can tell how many of them perished, pierced by the swords and daggers of their comrades. Oki no Hagen alone entered alive into a small boat to go back to his province. Yet the men of that place guarded the inlets and bays the Taiheiki against him, by reason that their hearts had changed abruptly. He drifted with the waves and winds to Tsuruga in Echizen, but very soon he cut open his belly in a wayside temple at Bamba, in the land of Omi Sit, being the time when Rokuhara was brought down. Although the age was an age of decline, did not heaven's justice still prevail? It was strange indeed that Oki no Hogan was himself destroyed utterly in 30 days, and his head hung up on a warrior's banner, halberd, * he who had thus grievously distressed the former sovereign. Now when men knew that the Supreme Highness had come back from the province of Oki to sojourn at Funano, warriors from all the provinces galloped to join themselves to him, the one after the other. Nor could Funano mountain contain the mighty host, but for 2 or 3 leagues in every direction from its base, there was no empty place, not even beneath tree or bush. XS. Kojima Hoshi, Taiheiki, Chapter 8, The Battle of Maya and the Battles of Sakabe and Segawa. Now there came Manyfast messengers to Rokuhara from Izumo and Hoki, saying, "The former sovereign has come to Funano, whither all the warriors of neighboring provinces gallop to join themselves to him, for Oki no Hagen has been defeated in battle." And with colorless faces those who heard thought in their hearts, "The hour of calamity is come. Still, we cannot permit the enemy to stay in a place near the capital," said the lords of Rokuhara. "We must first attack Maya Castle in the province of Setsu, that we may subdue Akamatsu." Then to the forces of Sasaki Hagen Takanabu and Hitachi, no Zenji Takatomo, they added the watchmen of the 48 places, as well as 300 Miura monks and warriors of the capital, to go forth against Maya Castle, more than 5,000 riders, that departed from the city on the 5th day of the intercalary 2nd month. and these advanced from Madomzuka and Yahata woods at the southern base of Maya Castle, at the hour of the hare on the 11th day. When he beheld the enemy, the Akamatsu lay monk thought to draw them to a perilous place. He sent down 100 or 200 foot archers toward the bottom of the mountain, who merely shot a few distant arrows before retreating again toward the castle. And the 5,000 jubilant attackers climbed after these up the steep the Taiheiki south hillside, jostling and shoving, neither men nor horses stopping for an instant to breathe. There was a steep and narrow path on this mountain, called the Seven Bends. As the attackers hesitated there, not able to climb up easily, the teacher of discipline Akamatsu Sokuya and Akuma Kuro Seaman, J6 Mitsuyasu descended to a place where the mountain bulged out southward, whence they shot quickly many times without grudging their arrows. The attackers wavered, each seeking shelter behind the other, whereupon 2 sons of the Akamatsu lay monk advanced against them from the second of Maya's eminences, Norisuke the governor of Shinano and Sadanori the governor of Chikuzan, with Seo, Kazuki, Kodara, and 500 men of the Hayami band, who came down like the crumbling of a great mountain with sword points aligned. Although the captains of the attackers commanded, "Let those in the rear withdraw first," their warriors would not listen, since each thought to go back before the other. Yet they could neither retreat nor fight a defensive fight, by reason that muddiest fields lay hard against the path, where horses sank down baying their knees. Likewise, the narrow way was encompassed about by thick brambles. Soon for 3 leagues men and horse lay dead in heaps, from the foot of the castle to the west bank of the Muko River, nor could travelers make their way past them. Although it was said that 7,000 horsemen rode forth in this army from Rokuhara, not 1,000 returned. Great, indeed, was the dismay in the capital and Rokuhara. Nevertheless, there were those who said, "Still, this enemy has arisen from a nearby place, nor have we heard that many warriors have joined themselves to him. Even if he gains 1 or 2 victories, what will it amount to? When the enemy was thought of in this way, no advantage had been lost by retreating." Now again men came, saying that even the stewards and housemen of the H6J family were gone over to the enemy in the province of Bizen. "We must send attackers against Maya Castle before its strength increases," said the lords of Rokuhara, and they dispatched another army of 10,000 horsemen on the 28th day of the month. Up in hearing off thys, the Akamatsu lay monk said, "To win a victory in fighting, nothing can be better than coming out suddenly, oppressing the spirit of a great enemy, quickly changing to new devisings, and being beforehand in acting." Held his 3,000 horsemen out of Maya Castle to camps at Sakabe. On the 10th day of the 3rd month, one came to Akamatsu, saying, "The army of Rokuhara is come to Segawa." Yet Akamatsu's heart was at ease, for he thought, "Doubtless the battle will not be set in array until tomorrow." And there being a passing shower, this lay monk entered a small hut to dry his armor and wait for the ending of the rain. But while he abode therein, suddenly a Wano Agasawara advanced against him with more than 3,000 riders, come onto the land from boats at Amagasaki. Although the warriors with Akamatsu were scarcely more than 50 men, they galloped into the middle of the mighty host to fight against them, not looking to the right or left. Yet how might they prevail against the enemy's great numbers? 47 of them were struck down, and only 5 warriors remained with Akamatsu. But these 6 cast off the tokens, whereby men might know them, and rode around among the enemy. Perhaps the enemy could not distinguish them, or perhaps heaven helped them in their need, for every man of them escaped from the tiger's jaws and galloped safely into the middle of their own force, the 3,000 horsemen waiting west of Kayano Post Station. Thereafter the men of Rokuhara thought, "Though the enemy are few, they cannot be held lightly, since from yesterday's fighting we know that they are valiant and skilled in warfare." They hung back at Segawa Post Station, unable to advance. Nor did Akamatsu attack, but Anla sought to bring together his defeated warriors, waiting for men who were lagging behind. and the two sides camped apart, not deciding the outcome. At last, on the 11th day, Akamatsu led his 3,000 horsemen toward the enemy camp, thinking, "If our warriors grow weary of fighting, assuredly will their spirit bow before the enemy." Yet as these approached, they beheld 200 or 300 family the Taiheiki banners, fluttering in the breeze from the treetops eastward and westward of Segawa Station, as though the enemy were indeed a great host of 20,000 or 30,000 riders. At the sight of these banners, 7 of Akamatsu's warriors thought, "Not even 1 or 2 can we match against 100 if our force meets them in battle. Nonetheless, we must fall on this field, since there is no way of gaining a victory without fighting." They moved up toward the southern mountains from the shelter of some bamboo. Sadanori, the governor of Chikuzan, Seo Hayegono, Suknori, Uno. Kuniori, the governor of Nodo, Nakayama Gourd Seaman, no J6 Mitsuyoshi, Akuma Kurd Seaman, no J6 Mi, Suyasu, and two retainers. Beholding them, the enemy moved the edges of their shields as though to attack. Yet after all they but watched hesitantly, while the 7 flew down from off their horses to the shelter of a thick clump of bamboo, wherefrom they shot arrows furiously. By no means might the enemy escape those arrows, crowded Tojtharasklos as tacks in a shoe for more than 500 yards northward and southward of Segawa Station, but sorely stricken 5 of the closest men fell down headlong from off their horses. And the enemy warriors shielded themselves behind the foremost of their numbers, fearful lest their horses be wounded. Then 700 of Akamatsu's riders struck their quivers and raised a victory shout, saying, "Aha!" The enemy wavers. They attacked with bridles aligned. The young men in the service of Hirano Issei no Zenji and the warriors of Seo, Kazuki, Tanaka, Kodara, Yagi, and Kinugasa. When the foremost men of Rokuhara fell back, the rearmost failed to come forward in their stead, for it is ever thus when a mighty force wavers. Although the leaders commanded, "Withdraw in good order." The road is narrow. Heedlessly did sons desert. Their fathers and retainers forget their lords, and all fled thinking only of themselves. So they made their way back toward the capital, but more than half of their host were slain. Akamatsu cut off the heads of 300 wounded men and prisoners at Shuku, Ga-wara, hung them up, and was making ready Chapter 8 to go back again to Maya Castle, when his son, the teacher of discipline Sokuya, came forward and spoke a word, saying, "The best way to gain advantage in warfare is to press one's victory by pursuing those who flee." Having heard the names of the attackers, I am sure that all the armies of the capital were facing us. Those armies are weary, since they have fought a losing battle for 4 or 5 days, and neither men nor horses will be of any use in a fight. If we attack again before the spirit of cowardice awakens in us, should we not destroy Rokuhara in a single battle? Was this not set forth in T.I. Kong's military teachings? Was it not kept secret in his innermost heart by Tsu Fang? So he spoke, and all agreed that it ought to be so. That night they left Shuku, Ga-wara without delay, pursuing the fleeing enemy in the direction of the capital and burning houses on their way to make a light. The battle of the 12th day of the 3rd month. At Rokuhara no man dreamt of such things as these, for all believed with tranquil minds that soon the mighty host sent forth against Maya Castle would defeat the enemy. Yet as they eagerly awaited tidings thereof, suddenly, it was rumored, the attackers flee in defeat toward the capital. And though the truth was not known, men's hearts were filled with wonder and doubting. At the hour of the monkey on the 12th day of the 3rd month, the men off the capital beheld fires, lighted at more than 30 places over against Yodo, Akai, Yamazaki, and Nishi, no, Oka. To those that asked it was said, "The armies of the western provinces have drawn near from 3 directions," and a great clamor arose in the capital. Then in alarm, the 2 lords of Rokuhara rang Thebel of the Jizo Hall to assemble the warriors of the capital. But the chief part of the armies had run away and hidden themselves in divers places, chased back from Maya Castle. Of others, there were 400 or 500 magistrates and civil officials, tea-fat, puffed, out-men raised. Tu Taikung was a general of the Chu dynasty for Tsu, Fang, see Note 10, Chapter 2. The Taiheiki up onto their horses by others, but these were absurd warriors, not fit to fight a battle. Thereupon the Rokuhara personage of the north, Nakatoki the governor of Echigo, spoke a word, saying, "In no wise would it be proper strategy to meet the enemy in the capital. We must gallop outside the Satido, fight a defensive battle." He entrusted the 20,000 warriors in the capital to the 2 examiners, Suda and Takahashi, and sent them forth toward Imazake, Tsukuramichi, West Suzaku, and West Hachijay to fight with the Katsura River in front of them. For it was a time when snows were melted by the south wind, and the waters overflowed their banks. Meanwhile, the lay monk Akamatsu Enshin divided his 3,000 riders into 2 parts, to advance from Kaganawa and West Shichijay. When his warriors attacking at the front came to the west bank of the Katsura River, across the waters they beheld the army of Rokuhara, waiting with the banners of many families fluttering in the wind from Toba Akiyama and like clouds or mist, filling all the land from the west gate of the Seinen Imperial Villa to Tsukuramichi, Yatsuzuka, the east and west of Rashidman Gate, and the entrance to West Shichijay. Truly it was a mighty host. Now not a man of the defenders crossed the river, since it was commanded them, fight a defensive fight behind the Katsura River. Likewise, the attackers were loath to advance quickly, thinking, "This is a force mighty beyond expectation." Wherefore these 2 armies passed their time in shooting arrows, with the river between them. In the beginning, the teacher-off disciplined Sokuyi got down from his horse, untied a bundle of arrows, and shot furiously from behind a single plank shield. Yet in his heart he said, "Not by shooting arrows will this battle be decided." He put his discarded armor over his shoulders, tied the strings of his helmet, tightened his horse's girth, and rode down from the bank alone, pulling at the reins to cross the river. Beholding Sokuyi from afar, his father the lay monk rode up in front of him to restrain him, saying, "It is true that Sasaki Sabard rode across at Fujido in ancient times, and Ashikaga Matadare forded the Uji River. Yet this river is a great river, swollen with water from snows melting above, nor can one see its deep and shallow places. Moreover, you will surely perish if you gallop into that mighty host alone, even should your horse's strength carry you across. The fate of the realm does not depend upon this one battle. Have you nodes here to preserve your life, that his majesty may sit upon the throne again." So he spoke over and over, restraining him strongly. But Sokuya pulled up his horse, put back his drawn sword, and spoke a word, saying, "Were our numbers such as might stand against the enemy, then without devisings of mine might we entrust our fate to the battle's copyright outcome. Yet we are but 3,000 riders, while the enemy's 100 times greater. In no wise can we win this battle if we do not fight quickly, before the enemy knows the smallness of our size. It is said in T.I. Kung's writings touching on the military arts, to win a battle one must observe the enemy in secret, quickly take an advantage, and attack strongly when he is unprepared. Is this not a means of destroying the mighty enemy with our few warriors?" And spurred by the whip, his swift horse swam out, leaving a wake in the swollen current. Next 5 riders made haste to enter the river. Akumakuro Seaman, no, J6, It 6 Teifu, Kawarabayashi Jerd, Kaidra Sagami, and Uno Kuniori, the governor of Noto. Uno and It rode across the current in a straight line, so strong were their mounts. Kaidra Sagami was separated from his horse in the backward curling water, wherefore those who watched saw only the top of his helmet. But whether he swam through the water or walked on the bottom, he came to the opposite side before the others and stood on a sandbar, shaking off the water from his armor. Of the 20,000 warriors of Rokuhara, east or west, there was no man or horse but shrank back fearfully, not daring to attack those 5, for assuredly they thought that they were not ordinary men. The edges of their shields fell into disorder, and they wavered uncertainly. The Taiheiki again, 2 men of Akamatsu's army led the way into the river. Norisuke, the governor of Shinano, and Sadanori, the governor of Chikuzen, saying, "Do not let them strike down those who have gone ahead. Follow." So, then all at once 3,000 warriors of Seiyo and Kazuki plunged in, damming up the current with their horses until it flowed back over the banks in every direction, making the former pools and shallow Sinto dry land. And the 3,000 climbed up onto the opposite bank valiantly, resolved to hold their lives as nothing in the battle. May it be that the warriors of Rokuhara despaired of success. They cast away their shields and drew back their banners without fighting, some retreating north on Tsukuramichi Road toward the Eastern Temple, and others fleeing up the Taikda River bed toward Heisheiji-oji. For 25 or 500 yards along their way, their cast-off armor covered the ground and lay buried in the dust from horses' feet. Meanwhile, fires were lighted at more than 50 places in the neighborhood of Amiya, Inokuma, Horikawa, and Abura. No, Keiji, as though already the army attacking from West Shichijo had entered the capital, which is to say, the warriors of Kodara and Kinugasa, and of Seaman. No, Suke, the son of the Takakura lesser marshal. Likewise, it seemed that men were fighting in the 7th, 8th, and 9th wards, where sweating horses galloped east and west, while battle shouts shook heaven and earth. It was quite as though the 3 calamities had come up in Thessaly all at once: fire, water, and wind, or as though the world were to be consumed utterly in the hames of the Kalpa free. Since this battle in the capital was fought at night, war cries were heard here and there, but none could tell the numbers of the forces or the plan of the fighting, nor did the warriors know whither to go to put the battle in array. The defenders of the capital but galloped together at the 6th war driver bed, where they waited with amazed hearts. Tien Hindu mytholo, or the fire which burns when a universe is being destroyed, the fire of the Kalpa, Eon of destruction. The highness of the Jimyoin goes to Rokuhara. Now the Hino middle counselor Tsukina and the Hino great controller of the left Tsukikira came to the imperial palace together in the same courage. The 4 gates of the palace had been left open carelessly, with no warriors guarding them. And though the Supreme Highness had come out to the South Pavilion, asking, "Who is on duty?" it seemed that all the officers of the guard's headquarters had gone elsewhere, and likewise the officials of the Orchid Dais and Golden Horse. There were but 2 persons to attend upon His Majesty, a lady in waiting and a young page. Tsukina and Tsukikira went into the august presence, saying, "To our surprise, rebels have come attacking the capital, so ineffective has been the fighting of the court's armies. It may be that these traitors will mistakenly enter the imperial palace to make a disturbance. His Majesty must go at once to Rokuhara, sending the 3 sacred treasures on ahead." Then quickly the Supreme Highness rose up, entered the imperial litter, and went forth toward Rokuhara from the 2nd Ward Tiver bed. More than 20 great nobles came after him on the way. To go with him, the Horikawa Great Counselor, the Sanjo Minamoto Great Counselor, the Washinu Middle Counselor, the Boj 6 Magistrate, and others. Likewise, hearing of this, the retired emperor went forth toward Rokuhara, and Theprosly retired emperor did the same, and the crown prince and the empress, and even the Kagii prince of the blood of 2nd rank. The great nobles and their trains mingled with the armies, and the voices of those hawk-leered their way were heard constantly. In amazement, the men of Rokuhara hastened to open the northern compound, to make it into palaces for the Supreme Highness and the retired emperors, and there was a great clamor. Soon the 2 lords of Rokuhara awaited the enemy at the 7th Ward river bed. Yet Akamatsu's warriors did not advance, since Chinese names, for controllers and personal attendants. The Taiheiki but only ran about in divers places, lighting fires and uttering battle shouts. Doubtless even such hearts as theirs were dismayed to see the mighty enemy. Indeed. "We perceive that the enemy's numbers are few," said the lords of Rokuhara. "Let us force them back." They gave 3,000 riders to Suda and Takahashi to go toward the end of Hachijo Avenue, and to Kano Kurd Simano, J6 and Sayama jured they gave 2,000 riders to go toward the hall of the Lotus King. Now Sayama spoke to Kono, saying, we fight these contemptible attackers by mingling with them. We shall but obstruct ourselves so that we cannot attack or retreat quickly. Let us rather leave behind the warriors we have received from the Rokuhara lords, commanding them to utter battle shouts copyright at the 8th Wardriver bed, and let us fall upon the enemy with our own men from eastward of the hall of the Lotus King, rip into them from every direction, and shoot on their left and right as at a dog shoot. Copyright so he spoke, and K6 No agreed that it ought to be so. They sent the 2,000 vassal, Warriorsto the front of Shino, K6 Jai Seminary, divided themselves into Kono's force of 300 riders and Sayama's force of 150 riders, and went around eastward of the hall of the Lotus King. When the time of the signal was come, the force at the 8th Wardriver bed raised a battle cry, and the enemy turned their horses, headsto the west to fight against them. But thereupon, with a sudden shouting, the 400 riders of Sayama and Kano galloped into the middle of the greater force from the undreamt of rear. They ripped into them from every side, not attacking in one place, but attacking by chasing, separating when they came together, and coming together when they separated. And in this manner they smote them 7 or 8 times. Wearied by their long journey, Akamatsu's foot, soldiers fell in great numbers before these warriors riding swift horses, until at last they abandoned their wounded and ran away across the road in disorder. Heedless of the enemy's flight, Sayama and Kano rode westward across the 7th Ward River bed to Shichijai Amiya, thinking, "How can say what is happening in the fighting at West Shichijo?" In the direction of Suzaku they beheld 200 enemy riders, men of Takakura seamen, No, Suk, Kodara, and Kinugasa, galloping after the 3,000 warriors of Suda and Takahashi, who were powerless to stop their horses' feet. "Our side will be defeated," said Kono. "Let us attack," but Sayama restrained him, saying, "Wait a while. If we add our strength before the battle is decided on this field, Suda and Takahashi will claim the honor for themselves, so evil are their tongues. Look on for a while." At length Sayama said, "TT is foolish to watch until our side is enfeebled utterly. Let us join the battle now," and Kane agreed that it ought to be so. Their 2 forces came together in one, galloped into the middle of the greater army, and fought against them fiercely. With the classical 4, side attack they smashed the firm. With matchless valor they met the unexpected. And they defeated the attackers on this field as well, driving them away with Terudo on the west. It chanced that Sadanori, the governor of Chikyuzen, chased after the fleeing enemy when first Akamatsu's army crossed the Katsura River. Likewise his brother, the teacher of discipline Sokuya, did the same. Not knowing that no friendly warriors followed after them, these went up taked toward Heishiji-oji to the 6th Wardriver bed with but 4 retainers, resolved to attack the dwelling place of the H6J60 at Rokuhara. Yet it seemed that Akamatsu's warriors, the Taiheiki, had been defeated and driven back quickly, they who had advanced from the eastern temple, for these 6 beheld none but enemies on all sides. Now Thesix cast away the tokens, whereby men might distinguish them registered, and drew together in one place, thinking, we shall mingle with the enemy until friendly warrior seraph. But Suda and Takahashi rode around shouting, "Most assuredly have men of Akamatsu's army mingled with our warriors. Since they are enemies who have crossed a river, their horses and armor cannot fail to be wet. Let that be a sign to you to grapple with them." Thereupon Sadanori and Sokite thought, by no means will it be well to seek to mingle with the enemy. Thesic's riders aligned their bridles, shouted a mighty shout, galloped into the middle of the 2,000 enemy horsemen, and fought against them, announcing their names in this place and intermingling in that place. Raising a great clamor on all sides, the enemy fought among themselves for several hours, without understanding how few were the attackers. Yet at last all of the 4 retainers perished in divers places, since the great host could not be deceived forever. The governor of Chikuzan was separated from his brother, and Sokuya alone fled westward on Rokyuje and down Amiya. Fight retainers of the Ig governor of Owari pursued Sokuya, saying, "Though Ainami, you are indeed an extraordinary man. Tell us your name." Tranquilly, Sokuya spurred his horse. "Since I am a person of no consequence," he said, "you would not know me even if I were to tell you my name. You must simply take my head to show to people." When the enemy drew near, he turned back and fought against them. When they fell back, he allowed his horse to walk, and so for more than 2,000 yards he fled calmly, taking the 8 enemy horsemen with him. As Sokuya emerged in front of the West Hachijay temple to go to the south, he beheld 300 of Sadanori's retainers' cool badges attached to the helmet or sleeve for purposes of identification. Ing their horses, feet in a shallow place in the stream in front of Rashomon Gate, where they waited with banners high to gather together the warriors of the defeated army. He galloped in among them, beating his saddle flaps with his stirrups. And the 8 enemy pursuers turned back their horses' noses, saying, "We have allowed a desirable foe to escape. How annoying it is." Within a while after, more than 1,000 off, the warriors of Akamatsu galloped together again from mana places, they who had been scattered at the 7th Ward River bed and West Suzaku. Akamatsu brought these men forward from the streets, on the east and west, to raise a battle shout in the neighborhood of the 7th Ward. But with the Rokyuje cloister at their backs, 7,000 riders from Rokuhara chased them and drove them away. And then for 4 hours one attacked the other, so that no man might tell when the battle would be decided. At last, the warriors of Kono and Sayama came down to that place by way of Amiya. More than 500 horsemen, who went around behind to encompass the enemy rear, beat down the hindmost attackers, and killed them in great numbers. And Akamatsu's force, sorely reduced thereby, turned back toward Yamazaki. Pressing their victory, Kono and Sayama chased after the enemy as far as Tsukuramichi. But when they saw that Akamatsu would tear, they turned back in front of the Toba mansion, saying, "Let this be the end of the battle. There is no need to pursue them so far." Now the prisoners that Kono and Sayama captured alive were more than 20 men. And when they galloped back toward Roku, Hara, smeared with blood, they bore 73 heads affixed to the points of their swords. The Supreme Highness caused his screens to be rolled up that he might behold them. Likewise, the 2 lords of Rokuhara, seated on animal skins, examined the heads and spoke to Kono and Sayama, saying, "Though your actions are ever thus, yet assuredly there would have been no victory in this night's battle, had y'all not personally joined in the fighting, counting your lives as nothing." So they spoke, and praised them again and again. The Taiheiki that night by an extraordinary imperial decree Kono Kyurei was made the governor of Tsushima, and presented with a sword, and Sayama Jirei was made the governor of Bichai, and presented with a horse from the imperial stables. The warriors who saw and heard these things said enviously, "Ah, what an honor for the bow and arrow," and their names resounded throughout the land. On the day after they had been chased away in the fighting, Sudo and Takahashi galloped through the capital, gathering up the heads of wounded and dead men from ditches here and there, and hung them up in Rosut, the 6th Ward River bed, 870, 3 of them. Yet not so many of the enemy had been struck down. Some among them were merely heads brought forth by Rokuhara warriors who had not joined in the fighting, but sought to gain honor for themselves. Heads of commoners from the capital and other places, labeled with divers names. Among them were 5 heads labeled, the lay monk Akamatsu and Shin, which were all hung up in the same way, since all of them were heads of unknown men. Seeing them, the urchins of the capital laughed, saying, "The people who have borrowed heads are going to return them with interest." And the Akamatsu lay monkeys dividing his person. Is this a sign that the enemy cannot be exhausted? The sacred rituals in the palaces of the emperor and the retired emperor. Emperor, the Battle of Yamazaki in those days, the 4 seas were greatly disturbed, and the fires of war darkened the sky. There was no season wherein the emperor's heart was not oppressed with cares of state, nor was there a time when his military ministers might rest their banners. And therefore a command was handed down to divers shrines and temples to perform great rituals and offer up secret prayers. For it was said, "When shall peace return to the realm if the rebels be not destroyed by the virtue of the Buddhist law?" The Kajii prince, he who was brother to the emperor and abbot of the mountain gate, established an altar in the palace whereon to perform the Buddha rites, while in the palace of the retired emperor, the monk reformer Jia of Uritsuji performed the Yakushi rites. Likewise, the military presented estates to the Enryakuji, the Kofukuji, and the Onjoji, that they might enjoy divine protection by winning the hearts of the monks. They gave them many kinds of holy treasures as well, and called upon them to recite prayers. Yet though these offered up prayers, the gods did not accept their unrighteousness. Though they talked persuasively, men were not blinded with avarice. For the court governed without justice, and by many evil deeds the military invite ill fortune. Wherefore daily from the provinces came men bearing tidings of trouble, nor was there any end of their coming. Now Akamatsu had fled away toward Yamazaki, vanquished Section in battle on the 12th day of the 3rd month. Doubtless would he have found Norsting Place, had the men of Rokuhara, but chased after him quickly with an attacking army. Yet because these were remiss, thinking, "What more is there to fear?" the warriors of the defeated army galloped together from this place, and that, until rapidly they became a mighty host. Then Akamatsu singled out the Naka, in middle Marshal Sadahira, and proclaimed him as the imperial prince of the Shogun cloister. And from camps at Yamazaki and Yahata, he blocked the river mouth and cut off the road to the western provinces, so that there was no more trading within the capital, and all the warriors therein suffered for lack of stores. On hearing of these things, the 2 lords of Rokuhara sent forth an order, saying, "Akamatsu alone afflicts the capital, causing our warriors to suffer grievously. Truly it will be a shame to the military in generations to come, that with cowardly hearts we have trembled before rumors and allowed these enemies to remain within our borders. Though from the battle of the 12th day, it is clear that their armies not large. Let the warriors of the court registered go forth now against the enemy, registered a son of Dago who had become a monk." Akamatsu pretended that Sadahira was the prince in order to gain prestige and encourage other warriors to join the imperial cause, as the army of the court, and to the enemy as rebels. The court meant here is that of the new emperor. The Taiheiki destroy the camps at Yahata and Yamazaki, chase the rebels into the river, and take their heads to be exposed at the 6th Ward River bed. So indeed they commanded. The watchmen of the 48 places came together at the 5th Ward River bed, with the 5,000 riders dwelling in the capital, and they went forth toward Yamazaki at the hour of the hare on the 15th day of the 3rd month. In the beginning, this army was divided into 2 parties, but at the 8th ward they became one, since it was said, "At Kaganawate the road is narrow and Antherus fields are deep, so that horses cannot go forward and backward easily." They crossed the Katsura River, passed southward of Keishima, and drew near to the enemy from in front of Mazium and Ohirano. Hearing of their coming, Akamatsu divided his 3,000 riders into 3 parties. One made Yupa 500-foot archers he sent around to Ashio Mountain. One made Yupa 1,000 outlaws with a few warriors mounted on swift horses he left beside the Kitsune River. And one made up of 800 riders skilled in the use of forged weapons, hid in the pine trees behind Mukai, my 6-jin shrine. Unwittingly, the men of Rokuhara advanced farther than was meet, not thinking that this enemy would come out so far to meet them. They burnt the houses at Terudo, and the foremost among them Madito passed before Mukai, my 6-jin shrine. But thereupon Akamatsu's foot, archers came down with their single, plank shields from Yashamine Peak and Iwakura Mountain, shooting furiously. The attacking warriors sought to gallop against these to scatter them, Yet in no wise could they climb the steep mountains, nor might they draw them out to the plain to destroy them. For, understanding their minds, the men of Akamatsu would not attack. Then the men of Rokuhara said, "Enough, warriors. What is the use of exhausting our bodies by fighting against a band of inconsequential outlaws? Let us give this up and go on toward Yamazaki." As they rode southward past Nishioka, suddenly with 50 horsemen B6 J seamen, no, J6 galloped forth to smite the center of their mighty host from the small pine grove of Mukai, no, Mijin Shrine. The warriors of Rokuhara despised the lesser enemy, compassed them about, and strove to kill every man. But thereupon the warriors of Tanaka, Kodara, Yagi, and Kanzawa galloped out from divers places in groups of 100 or 200, advancing in wedges like the scales of a fish, or seeking to envelop the enemy like the wings of a chicken. Moreover, at the sight of these things, the 500 riders at the Kitsune River came traversing field paths and crossing roads to cut off the rear of the Rokuhara army. And then perhaps the warriors from the capital thought that they could not prevail, for they retreated, whipping their horses mightily. The warriors of the capital were not grievously injured, since the fighting had endured but briefly, yet through falling into ditches and muddy fields, their horses and armor were covered over with filth. When they passed through the city in full daylight, no beholder but laughed, saying, "Ah, if only Sayama and Kano had been sent, they would not have been defeated so shabbily." So because of this defeat the fame of Sayamon Khan increased, although they had not gone forth against the enemy, but had stayed behind in the capital. The soldier, monks of the Enryakuji invade the capital. Now there were those who came to the prince of the great pagoda, saying, "A battle has begun in the capital, wherein the imperial armies are like to suffer defeat." And thereupon the prince sent forth a messenger to speak persuasive words to the soldier monks of the mountain gate. All the monks of the mountain assembled in the courtyard of the great lecture hall on the 26th day of the 3rd month, and consulted together, saying, "Our mountain is a sanctuary that shelters and protects the generations of emperors, and a holy ground, wherein Buddhas have manifested themselves as the deities of the 7 shrines. Now when the great teacher Dengye first established this monastery, before the window of abstraction and contemplation, we gazed upon the moon of permanent reality, which is the only illumination. But suddenly after the Abbasioff, the monk reformer Jai, we girded on the Taiheiki the autumn frost of forged weapons over our garments of forbearance, that we might conquer interfering demons therewith. And thenceforth through the power of the Buddhist law, we expelled the evil that appeared in the realm, and through strength of our God drove back treachery that disordered the state. Although the 4 seas are disturbed today, and the imperial heart is not at ease, yet from man-importance is it known to wise men and fools alike that soon heaven will punish the wickedness of the military. It is said, there must be no remissness in serving the monarch. 1 degrees, although we who are monks have shaken off the dust of the world, how can we fail to render faithful service to the state? We must turn away quickly from the impropriety, whereby we followed after the military. With loyal hearts we must help the court in its time of peril. So indeed it was said, and the 3,000 all agreed, entirely so, entirely so. Going back again to their cloisters and valleys, they gave themselves over to plans for chastising the military. It being made known that the monks off the mountain gate would go against Rokuhara on the 28th day, the men off their subsidiary shrines and temples came forth to join them, and likewise warriors from nearby provinces galloped together like clouds or mist. When the arrivals were recorded in front of Amiya Shrine on the 27th day, they were more than 106 horsemen. Now it was ever the way of the soldier, monks of the mountain gate, that there was no limit to the hastiness of their hearts. On hearing of these things, the 2 lords of Rokuhara said, "Although the mountain monks are many, not a man of them will be riding a horse. We shall send mounted archers to await them at the 3rd Ward River bed, that they may gallop around them, get on their left and right sides, and shoot as though at a dog's shoot. However valorous the monks may be, they will quickly become weary from fighting on foot with heavy armor on their shoulders. This is the way to crush the many with the few and destroy the strong with the weak. Anthe divided their 7,000 riders into 7 parties that waited in positions eastward and westward on the 3rd war driver bed. Not dreaming Thetit was thus, each one of the monks resolved to be the first to enter the capital, take possession of desirable lodgings, and lay hands upon valuable things. And carrying 20 or 30 lodging signs apiece, they went forth toward the Hoshi. At Imamichi and Nishizaka stood that force, at Furutage and Yase, at Yabusada, Saguramatsu, and Sekisanguchi. When the foremost ranks were come to the hall of eternal reality of the Hoshi, still did the rearmost fill up Mount Hii and Sakamoto to overlowing. As the striking of lightning was the morning sun flashing on their armor, as dragons and snakes were their banners moving in the wind from the mountain. It was natural indeed that these should look down confidently upon Rokuhara, thinking, assuredly with this army it will be an easy matter, for their numbers were more than 10 times the numbers of the military. Now, as the foremost of the monks were waiting briefly for the rearmost at the Hosh 6 Jai, with loud war cries, the 7,000 riders of Rokuhara came against them from 3 directions. And startled by their shouting, the monks clamored, armor, swords, halberds. The monks went out before the west gate of the temple, a mere 1,000 men, unsheathing their weapons and battling against the enemies drawing near. But these pulled back their horses and retreated nimbly when the monks attacked, and galloped around to the rear when the monks stood in their places. As it was planned, 12 these were to proclaim occupancy and warn off others who might try to take possession of the same place. The Taiheiki from the beginning. In this wise they galloped and harassed them 6 or 7 times, until at length the bodies of the monks grew weary, by reason that they fought on foot wearing heavy armor. And seizing their advantage, the warriors put forward archers to shoot them mercilessly. Then the monks sought to find shelter within the temple C4. Perhaps they thought that they could not prevail against those arrows in a flat place. Yet an enemy warrior called Saji Magoro, a resident of the province of Tamba, brought his horse up sideways in front of the west gate and easily slashed the bellies of 3 enemies with his 5-foot sword, such a long sword as had never before been seen. Then this warrior struck the sword against the door of the gate, straightening it where it had bent little, and turned his horse's head to the west to await the enemy. It may be that the mountain monks were affrighted by the strength of Saji Magoro, or perhaps they thought that there were enemies within the temple as well. For they turned their feet northward from the west gate without entering the temple, divided themselves into 2 parties that went in front of the hall of eternal reality and in back of Kagureaka, and thought only of retreating to Mount Hiei. Now there were 2 warlike monks, famous among the 3 pagodas, who lived together at the Zenchibo cloister in the south valley of the East Pagoda, and their names were Gakken and Gaisen. As these were being carried along unwillingly toward North Shurikawabyth great size of their army, Gakken called out to Gaisen to stop him, saying, "There are times when one wins and times when one loses, since such is the way of warfare. Nor is there any shame in something which depends upon the luck of the moment. Yet because today's battle was such as might allow the realm to mock at the mountain gate, let us go back together to meet the enemy Andy, that by sacrificing the lives of 2 men we may wipe out the disgrace of the 3 pagodas." So he spoke, and Gaisen said, "T.S. it needful to speak. I would like nothing better." 22, stopping their feet before the north gate of the Hisheiji, these 2 named their names in a mighty shout, saying, "Well may you know that we're the bravest men of the 3 pagodas, since we turn back alone from the great host drawing us along. Doubtless you have heard our names. We're known to the entire mountain as Gakken and Gaidson, residents of the Zenchibe cloister in the south valley of the East Pagoda. Draw near, self-confident warriors. Use your forged weapons to provide a spectacle for the men of your army." So they spoke, whirling their great four-foot halberds like water wheels. Again and again, they leaped and attacked with flying sparks of fire. Many were the warriors whose horses' legs were cut when they sought to smite these two. Many were they hopeful to the Around and perished with smashed helmets. For an hour the two fought there, although no monk came to join himself to them. But when they were wounded in more than 10 places by enemy arrows shot like falling rain, they made a compact, saying, "We have no chance now. Let us journey together to the nether regions." They stripped off their armorto beareth their upper bodies, cut their bellies crosswise, and lay down on the same pillow. Of all the warriors who saw them, not one but said regretfully, "Ah." They were the stoutest fellows in Japan. After the foremost monks had returned defeated, the great force in the rear went back to the mountain gate from the road, not so much as looking upon the battlefield. Only the conduct of Gakuen and Gaisen did honor to the mountain gate. The battle of the third day of the fourth month, and the valor of Magasabure the military were ever victorious after Akamatsu fell back defeated on the 12th day of the third month, and the enemies that they slew were 5,000 or 6,000 men. Yet Theffer seas remain the Taiheiki unquiet. Moreover, the monks of the mountain gate turned away their faces from the H6J6, and men said that they lit beacon fires on the great peak, assembling forces at Sakamoto to go against Rokuhara a second time. But then the military sought to win the hearts of the monks by presenting 13 large estates to the mountain gate, while to each of the principal monks they gave 1 or 2 pieces of desirable land, saying, "These are for prayers." And thereupon the councils of the mountain gate were riven in twain, and many monks became friendly toward the military. Now the imperial armies at Yahata and Yamazaki were diminished by more than half, and were become fewer than 10,000 riders, since many had been killed and wounded in the fighting at the capital. In the one party were men of Edo, Matsuda, and Hayami, the band of Tonda Hogan, and outlaws from Maki and Kyuzuha. 3,000 riders, led by the Tono sign of the Law Reiichi and Naka, in Sadahira, that lighted fires at Fushimi and Kobata and advanced from Toba and Taikta. In the other party were warriors of the lay monk Akamatsu and Shin, and of Uno, Kashiwabara, Seiyo, Majima, Tokuhira, Kinugasa, and the Kank band. 3,500 riders that lighted fires at Kashima and Katsura, Sato, and advanced from West Shichijo. The hearts of the Rokuhara warriors were valiant within them, since they had won victories in many battles, and likewise their numbers were more than 30,000 riders. They were in no wise affrighted when they heard tidings of the enemy attack, but gathered together calmly at the 6th Ward River bed to divide themselves into parties. 3,000 horsemen were given to Sasaki Hogan Takanabu, Hitachi, Zenji Takatomo, and Nagai Nui Hidemasa, that they might go forth toward Tadasugawara. For it was thought, though 18 another name for Mount Hiei. Soldier, monks G. Uyua is 9110. G. Laenes, elt the monks of the mountain gate now incline their hearts toward the military, who can say what wickedness they may devise. There must be no remissness, and with 5,000 riders, the lords of Rokuhara sent forth Kaino and Sayama toward Hishoji Oji, saying, "It will be well to go there, since we won a victory in that direction in the fighting on the 12th day of last month." They added 6,000 warriors to the men of Togashi, and the Hayashi family, and Shimazu, and Kobayakawa's 2 forces, and sent them toward the 8th Ward and the Eastern Temple. And to the end of West Shichije, they sent the K6-Te governor of Kaga, Kaji Genta seamen, Suda, Takahashi, Kasuya, Tsuchiya, and Ogasawara with 7,000 riders. 1,000 riders were kept at Rokuhara to take the places of others in the fighting. All at once, at the hour of the snake, the battle began in 3 directions. Sending forth fresh warriors again and again, the 2 sides strove together. Among the attackers, warriors mounted on horses were few, but foot archers were many, wherefore these blocked up the streets, shooting arrows furiously together. Within the army of Rokuhara, foot Soldiers were few and mounted warriors were many, wherefore these galloped backward and forward, seeking to encompass the enemy about. Yet neither side could beat down or surround the other, for both were acquainted with Sun Tizu's 1,000 charge strategy, and likewise with Wu Tizu's 8. Position tactics. 1 They strove together mightily, neither winning nor losing. When in this wise they had fought until the setting of the sun, K6 No and Sai imagined their 300 riders together and galloped forward with their bridles in a row. And the attackers from Kohata, beaten down utterly, drew back toward the Uji Road. Next Sayama and Kano rode across, take the beach past the north gate of the Toba mansion to Tsukura Michi, heedless of the fleeing enemy, that they might encompass the attackers before the eastern temple. And perhaps those attackers thought that they could not stand against them, though they filled the 18 blocks of Tsukura Michi, for they crossed westward of Rashiman Gate and drew back toward Terudo. Sun Tzu and Wu Tzu were ancient Chinese military strategists. The Taiheiki thereupon chagrin burned in the hearts of Kobayakawa and Shimazu Aki, no, Zenji, who had met the attackers at the Eastern Temple and had chased them and fought against them. It is a defeat for us that the enemies we faced were driven away by Kanon Sayama, they thought. Let us fight a glorious fight against the enemies attacking in the direction of West Shichijie. And they went up West Hachijie to West Suzaku. Now the Akamatsu lay monk had made a stand in that place with 3,000 mighty men of valor, and it did not seem that he would be defeated easily. Yet Shimazu and Kobayakawa sit their battle in array from the side, whereupon the weary warriors of Rokuhara gained strength again to attack from 3 directions. And Akamatsu's force, wavering suddenly, fell back separately to 3 places. Then there came 4 warriors from out of Akamatsu's army, advancing without hesitation to fight the thousands of the enemy. Truly their resolution surpassed the fury of Fan Kei or H. Xiang Ye. Degrees as they drew near, the men of Rokuhara saw that they were 7 feet tall, with divided beards and upslanting eyes. They were clad in armor on top of chain mail, with metal thigh guards and knee armor. Dragon head helmets were pushed back on their heads, 5 foot swords hung at their waists, and lightly in their hands they held octagonal iron clubs 8 feet long, whereof 2 feet were rounded that they might grasp them. Beholding these 4 men, the thousands in the Rokuhara host fell back in 3 directions, not waiting to fight against them. The 4 invited the enemy, and named their names with a mighty shout, saying, "We're residents of the province of Bichia, known as Thele Monk Hayami Matajare, his son Magasaber 6 Tanaka Todkard Morikane, and his brother Yakurei Moriyasu. Proclaimed to be outlaws in the far-off days of our youth, we have passed our lives enjoyably as mountain bandits. Now we have joined our Silvesto the side of the gracious master of a myriad chariots, since by good fortune the realm has become disordered. Our hearts are ashamed, because our side was vanquished in a previous battle, and failed to fight a good fight." 16 hearing them, Shimazu Aki no, Zenji spoke a word to his sons and retainers, saying, "Behold the peerless strong men of the western provinces, even those of whom men speak in these days. Not by number Salon will they be slain. Do you others go elsewhere for a while, to give battle against the remaining enemy. Mitwasan's Endai will draw near to them, to afflict them for a time by advancing and retreating, and then wished we not able to kill them. However strong they may be, they cannot fail to be struck by arrows. However fast they may run, assuredly they cannot overtake ours. If we do not make use today of our many years of dog, shooting and hat, shooting, when shall we do it? Come, come. Let us fight a glorious battle for men and to see." Thereupon these 3 riders went forth alone to meet the 4 enemies. Tanaka Tokyurei mocked at them, saying, "Though we do not know your names, courageous indeed is your resolution. If it is all the same to you, we will keep you alive so that you may fight on our side." He walked toward them calmly, shaking his iron club. And calmly Shimazu and his sons, rode their horses forward. When the distance was met, Zenji pulled back his bow, strung by 3 men, and with a singing sound the arrow flew away, a shaft measuring 12 hands and the breadth of 3 fingers. Nor did that arrow fail to find its mark, but pierced Tanaka's right cheek to the cross-stitched bottom flap of his helmet, where it buried half its length. Notwithstanding his great strength, Tanaka's eyes grew dim, nor could he advance further, for he was grievously wounded in a vital place. But his brother Yakurei ran up to him, drew out the arrow, and threw it aside, saying, "The Taiheiki, the men of Rokuhara, are the emperor enemies. You are my brother's enemies. None shall be spared." He took up his brother's club to whirl against them. And leaping for joy, Heiami and his son followed after, ready to draw their 5-foot swords. Yet the hearts of the Shimazu were tranquil, since they were wise in the ways of horsemanship, and excelled in shooting arrows rapidly. When Tanaka and the others advanced against them, they shot strongly, whipping their horses and turning around in their saddles. When the enemy circled to the right, they crossed on the left, shooting at them strongly. So these strove Tojutharal alone, the one chasing and passing the other, the famous wielders of forged weapons from the west, and the peerless horsemen of the north. Truly, it was a sight such as former generations dreamed not of. When the Shimazu had used up their stores of arrows, they made ready to fight with forged weapons. But then perhaps Kobayakawa thought that they could not prevail, for his 200 horsemen attacked shouting, they who had waited north of the Jiz 6 Hall of Suzaku. And the warriors behind Tanaka and the others drew back quickly. Each of the 2 Tanaka brothers was stricken with 20 to 30 arrows, driven into the cracks of his armor and the inner parts of his helmet, and it was even thus with the Heiami lay monk and his son. Wherefore the 4 leaned on their upturned swords and perished standing on their feet. Of those who saw or heard of these things, there was none that ceased to feel regret. Meanwhile, 300 horsemen of the Kank family came into the capital as far as Shijie in Okuma, residents of the province of Mimasaka, who fought fiercely against the 1,000 warriors of Taikta Hidgo, No, Suke, Kasuya, and Takahashi. When the Kank beheld Akamatsu's warriors retreating behind them, perhaps it was a shamido, them to show their backs to the enemy, or perhaps from the beginning they were resolved not to draw away. For 3 brothers of the Aramoto Kank galloped beside the enemies drawing near, Shurd Sukahiro, Gourd Sukamitsu, and Matasabure Tsukiyoshi, and grappled with them until they fell down to the ground. Taikta Shichir 6 held down Sukahiro and cut off his head. See, Sukahiro's Chapier 8 kneecap had been smitten during the morning's fighting, and it may be that his strength had weakened. Sukamitsu took the head of Taikta Jurd, and Tsukiyoshi and a retainer of the Taikta stabbed each other mortally. Thereupon Sukamitsu and Taikta Shichir's thought in their hearts, "Since they were 2 brothers, and likewise ourselves, we cannot live on alone. Let us strive together to seek a decision." They cast aside the heads that they bore, grappled together, and cut at one another with their swords. Thereupon 4 men turned back their horses all at once. Fukumitsu Hikajir Sukanaga, Uetsuki Hikagord Shidesuk, Harada Hikasabure Sukihide, and Takatori Hikajire Tainsuk. They grappled mightily with the enemy, brought them down to the ground, and cut them with their swords, until 27 persons were smitten in that place. And in that gadding the warriors of Akamatsu were beaten down. Likewise, in Akamatsu's army there was one Mega Magasabure Nagamani of the province of Harima, the seed of Satsuma Ujinaga, a man whose strength exceeded the strength of others, and whose body was excellent beyond comparing. Since his 12th spring, this Magasaburo had sported joyfully with wrestling. There was no man able to stand against him, though he used Buta single hand, not in any of the more than 60 provinces of Japan. Moreover, Magosa Bird's 17 kinsmen who followed after him were all superior to ordinary persons, since it is the way of Mankindfor like to come together with like. These 18 men went forward alone as far as Rokuje, Nabeman Amiya, but 3,000 warriors of Rokuhara, who were returning victorious from the eastern temple in Taikta, compassed them about and smote the 17 mortally, so that Ma Gossabure alone remained. "Though mine is a worthless life," said Magasabers, "not yet is his majesty great work completed. I shall live on alone to render aid in a time to come." And he drew back toward West Suzaku. Now 50 riders of the governor of Suruga pursued after Magasaber's 6 acute. Among them was a young warrior of about 20 the Taiheiki years, who galloped near to grapple with Mega Magasabure where he fled, and laid hands on the sleeve of his armor. Magasabure thought nothing of it, but unbent his long arm, grasped that warrior's armor, brayed, and rode holding him in the air for 350 yards. May it not be that that warrior was a person of consequence? The 50 riders chased after him, saying, "Do not allow him to be killed." But Magasaburo glared at them, saying, "The enemy depends upon the enemy. Do not make the mistake of coming up to me because I am single rider. If you want this fellow, I will let you have him. Here he is." Moving the armored warrior from his left hand to his right hand, he tossed him away with a shout. The warrior flew over the heads of 6 horsemen, riding behind, and struck into the Mudoff, a paddy field so deeply that no part of him could be seen. And beholding this, the 50 hastily turned back their horses. In divers places were 800 of Akamatsu's kinsmen slain, warriors whom he trusted above others in this day fighting. And with fainting spirits and wearied bodies, his men drew back again toward Yahata and Yamazaki. The Supreme Highness performs the rites of the Golden Wheel. Wheel, Lord Chigusa fights in the capital now. To Funano there came men-bearing tidings of how the imperial armies were smitten again and again in the fighting at the capital, and the warriors at Yahata and Yamazaki were become few in number. The Supreme Highness was afflicted thereat, thinking, "How will it be with the realm?" He raised up an altar in the imperial dwelling place at Funano to perform the rites of the Golden Wheel, registered the Son of Heaven himself. And on the night of the 7th day, the 3 radiant sons of heaven appeared in a cloud of glory above that altar, registered of worship. See note 25, chapter 1. 19 tree bodhisattvas, the stars, divine sons of the sun, the moon, and the bright. Then fervently the emperor believed that his prayer would be granted soon. Although it is said that Tadaki's warriors were but 1,000 riders before he took his way from the province of Hoki, the hosts came galloping to join themselves to him, until quickly their numbers became more than 207, 0 horsemen. Moreover, Oda Sabure seaman, no, J6, the protector of Tajima, lifted up the young 6th prince. Degrees he whom the military had sent away to Tajima as a prisoner at the beginning of the disturbance of Genko. And gathering together warriors from nearby provinces, Oda went forth to Shinomura in Tamba to meet Tadaki the middle marshal, who joyfully raised the august standard of brocade, greeted the prince as superior grand marshal, and in the prince's name sent forth commands for the assembling of warriors. On the 2nd day of the 4th month, the prince departed from Shinomura to make his camp at the mine, no, D6 Templine the hills westward of the capital. Nor might all the 200,000 horsemen of his host be contained in the Tani, no, Day Temple, Hemuro, Kinugasa, Mangoku, 6 Jai, Matsunu, or Katsura no, Sato, but the half thereof slept in the fields. And indeed advanced toward Rokuhara at the hour of the hare on the 8th day of the 4th month, registered one of Dago's Manasons. 21 Tadaki. The Taiheiki there were those who were affrighted thereby, saying, "Strange indeed. On this day, which is the birthday of the Buddha, it is the way of wise men and fools alike to aurify their hearts in the baptismal waters, and to expel evil and cultivate virtue with flowers, burning incense, and the recitation of sacred texts. Why should anyone follow the way of demons and fiends by beginning a battle on a holy day?" Doubtless the words of Confucius were in their minds, who said, Those in high position are as wind, and those below are as grass. Assuredly must the grass bow before the wind. Meanwhile, the men of Rokuhara made ready to receive the enemy on the west by building covered walls on the outer edge of Amiya from the 3rd ward to the 9th ward. They erected towers on the tops of these, where 2 archers were dispatched, and in every street they placed 1,000 or 2,000 riders, to advance in wedges like the scales of a fish or encompass the enemy like the wings of a chicken. When they inquired concerning the grand marshal of the attackers, there were those that said, "He is the 6th young princely son of the former sovereign." The general serving below him is the Chigusa middle marshal, Tadaki no Asan. Thereupon the men of Rokuhara said, "Indeed, it is needless to worry about the outcome of the battle." Though Tadaki be a Minamoto, the Mandarin orange south of the river becomes a quince when it is moved north of the river. 4 emperors when they became commoners. Some of the families thus founded moved to the provinces and became warriors, while others remained in the capital as courtiers. Since Tadaki belonged in the 2nd category, there was no particu wenfollowers of the way of bow and horse-strive in battle against versifying courtiers. The warriors cannot fail to win. And valiantly, their 7,000 riders made their way toward the outer edge of Amiya, awaiting the coming of the enemy with eager hearts. Meanwhile, Tadaki no Asan divided his host before the office of shrines, whence he sent 1,000 attackers into every street from Otenri to Shichijie. Now the men of Rokuhara had built fortresses and put archers in front of them, and in the rear they had established mounted warriors to gallop out and chase back the enemy when they wavered. Likewise, the imperial armies had placed fresh men 2 and 3 deep, wherefore when the first line drew away, a second line came forward in their stead, and when the second line were beaten down, a third line came forward in their stead. The dust of their attacking obscured the heavens, nor did any man or horse rest his weariness. Because both of these armies prized virtue and disdained life, because they esteemed honor and welcomed death, no man of them drew back to escape an enemy, although many advincedto aid a friend. Most assuredly, did it seem that the outcome would not be decided quickly. Suddenly fires burned in divers places, lighted by men of the Tajima and Tamba force ascent into the city secretly, and great billows of smoke rose up like a screen, since just at that time the wind blew violently. And the foremost men of Rokuhara drew back into the city beyond Amiya. Then the lords of Rokuhara called upon the warriors held in readiness to aid the weak, sending them forth with 5,000 riders toward the Ikija and Nije approachesto the city. Sasaki Hogan Takanabu, Suda, Takahashi, Nambu, Shimiyama, Kano, Sayama, and Kobayakawa. And in combat against these new forces the protector of Tajima, Oda Sabard Seaman, no, J6 was struck down. On the side off the tackers, Ajino Hikoroku and Adachi Sabure la reason to fear his military prowess. The saying quoted, which means that men are molded by their environment, appears in the Chinese philosophical text Huainan, Su, and elsewhere. The Taiheiki of Tambodvan said as far as Shij 6 Abura, no, K6 Jai with 500 riders, but 700 defenders fought against them, followers of Yakushi Hakare, Nakyoshi Jare, and Tenko-dama from the province of Bizan, until Ajino and Adachi gave back, thinking that the attackers at Nij 6 were defeated. Likewise, with 700 horsemen Kanaji Sabure attacked as far as Shichij 6 Higashi, Notten. Yet he was so grievously wounded that he could not withdraw, and the Kozuka family of Harima captured him alive by surrounding him with 300 riders. 80 soldier monks from Mek and Tamba advanced as far as Goj 6 Nishi no Tiden, fighting without knowledge of the withdrawal of their allies. But Sho Sabure and Makabe Shure of Bichiai surrounded them with 300 riders and killed every man. So on every side the attackers were smitten and beaten down, until they drew away beside the Katsura River. Only at Ikijo did they hold fast, where Nawa Kajire and Kojima Bingo no Sabure led their warriors, galloping and fighting furiously. The defenders at Ikage 6 were Sayama and K6 no, and the attackers were Nawa and Kojima. Kojima and Kono were kinsmen, and Nawa and Sayama had been comrades together. Yet perhaps their hearts were shamed by words that had been spoken, or perhaps they thought off troubles to come. For they fought with great shouts, not holding life dear, but saying, "Though we perish here, we will not dishonor ourselves by fleeing." Soon there came one to the middle marshal, Tadaki, where he drew back at Uchino, saying, "At Ikage our warriors stand and fight." Wherefore Tadaki went before the office of shrines again, and sent a messenger to call back Kojima and Nawa. Kojima and Nawa made their farewells to Sayama and K6 no, saying, "This day has already drawn to a close. We shall meet another time." And the two armies drew apart, the one to the east and the one to the west. Lord Chigusa took his way back to his camp at the mine, no, day, for the sun declined in the heavens, and the army was scattered in many places. When he made an accounting of the wounded and slain, they were more than 7,000 men, and among the chapter 8, dead were several hundred trustworthy chieftains, Oda, the Kanaji family, and others. Then Lord Chigusa summoned Kojima Bingo no Saburo Takanori, for perhaps he thought that Takanori might become a warrior marshal. He spoke a word to Takanori, saying, "Our defeated warriors are powerless to give battle. It is in my mind that weddle to encamp thus hard against the capital. Rather would I draw back little, gather together a new host from nearby provinces, and attack the city once more. What is your opinion?" So he spoke, yet Kojima Saburo would not agree. "By no means is defeat a shameful thing," he said. "The outcome of a battle rests with the fortune of the moment. A general can be blamed only when it draws back wrongly, or fails to attack when attacking is meet. With but 1,000 riders, the Akamatsu lay monk has gone against the capital 3 times, and drawn away unable to prevail. Yet he has never given up his camps at Yahata and Yamazaki. As regards my lord's warriors, even if the greater half of them were to be struck down, they would still be more numerous than the men of Rokuhara. Moreover, there are deep mountains behind this camp, and a great river runs before it, so that it is an excellent fortress in time of attack. It is not proper to think, 'Ah, I should like to withdraw from this position. I shall make a camp at the end of the Shichijai Bridge, lest the enemy come against us by night, trading upon the weariness of our warriors. Do you send forth 400 or 500 trustworthy warriors to guard the Umezu and Horin crossings?' Thereupon, with 300 riders, Kojima Saburo Takanori encamped westward from the Shichijai Bridge. Likewise, for a time Lord Chigusa abode at the mine no. D6, shamed by Kojima's words. Yet when the night Washef spent, then indeed did this lord set the prince upon a horse and flee toward Yahata from in front of Hemuro. For perhaps his heart was stricken with fear by the words. It may be that the enemy will attack in the night. Although Bingo no Saburo knew nothing of this, in the late watches off the night he beheld the fires that had glittered like stars at the mine no. Day, how one by one their numbers lessened, and in the Taiheiki many places they died away. He climbed up toward the temple from Hamuro, 6 jai to observe the state of things, asking in his heart, "Alas, has the Grand Marshal run away?" And when he came before the Jajaji temple, he fell in with Ajino Hikoroku Tamataka. "The Grand Marshal fled in the night at the hour of the rat, wherefore we too were obliged to come down from the mountain," said Ajino. "We are going toward Tamba. Come along. We will take you with us." Greatly angered, Bingo no Sabard said, "It was indeed a grievous error to make a Grand Marshal of such a cowardly man as this. I must behold the state of things at once, lest it be a distress in times to come. Pass by swiftly. I will climb to the temple to seek the prince, but afterward I will come behind you." Leaving his men at the foot of the mountain, he pushed upward alone through the fleeing hosts. When he came to the main hall, the abiding place of the Grand Marshal, he beheld the imperial banner of brocade, where it was left behind, and even the Grand Marshal's underdress, for with sorely affrighted heart had Tadaki run away. Wrathfully Bingo no Sabure said to himself, would that this Grand Marshal would perish by falling into a ditch or plunge over a precipice. And he stood for a time on the veranda of the hall, gnashing his teeth. Soon Bingo no Sabure rolled up the brocade banner for a servant to carry, thinking, my men will be waiting anxiously. He ran down quickly in front of the J6 Jaji, spurred his horse forward at the head of his followers, and came up with Ajino Hikoroku beside Oiwake Post Station. Ajino took with him 3,000 warriors fleeing toward Tamba, Tango, Izumo, and Hoki, who were gathered together at Shinamura and Hieta, and routing the outlaws along his way, he shut himself up in Keisenji Castle in the province of Tamba. Oh, the fire at the Tani no Do Temple. Now to the capital came men saying that the Chigusa Middle Marshal was fled from his camp in the western hills. Wherefore on the 9th day of the 4th month, the warriors of Rokuhara entered the Tani. No, D6 acute in disorder, and the mine no, Day, and the Jajaji and Matsunu and Mangoku, 6 Jai, and Hamuro and Kinugasa. They destroyed the Buddhist pavilions and god halls, took possession of the monks, cloisters, and commoners' dwellings, and carried away all the precious things. And when they had done, they burnt the houses. In an instant, more than 300 sacred buildings turned to ashes at the Jajaji and the Seifukuji, and at Hamuro, Kinugasa, and the Nisanin cloister. 5,000 commoners' houses were destroyed as well, since just at that time a wind blew furiously. Buddhist images turned to smoke in an instant, and holy objects of the way off the gods, and sacred writings of many kinds. Now the Tani no Do was a sacred place established by His Holiness Enro, a son of the eldest son of Yashichika, the governor of Tsushima, the eldest son of Lord Hachiman. Since in the far off days of his youth, this holy man separated himself from his family of many generations of warriors to dwell humbly in a lonesome cell. Practicing the 3 studies, which are abstinence, decision, and wisdom, he attained the merit of cleansing the 6 sense organs. Before the window where chanted the words of the Lotus Sutra, the bright divinities of Matsunu sat in a row with inclined ears. Within the door where he performed the mysteries of the true word, a child guardian of the law waited upon him with folded arms. Because this temple was a place founded by such a wise and virtuous man, its sacramental waters had flowed purely during the stars and frosts of more than 500 years. Even to the present, the Taiheiki era of degeneration had the radiance of the Lamphof, the law shone brightly. Therein were treasured more than 7,000 scrolls of sutras and commentaries, transmitters of the teachings of the Buddha, stored in a library 18 feet long on the 4 sides. The towers of 49 cloisters stood above the rare trees and curious rocks of its pond, most like to the inner close of the Tusita heaven. Degrees on 12 balustrades, pearls and costly stones were offered up to heaven, on a pagoda of 5 stories gold and silver beckoned Toth moon. Surely the splendor of the 7 treasures of the Pure Land is even thus. Likewise, the J6 Jaji was a place whence the disciplinary teachings were spread abroad, a place for the labors of the Ritsu faith. When the blessed Sakyamuni entered Nirvana, a demon called Nimble spirit secretly drew near Beniath the paired trees before the golden coffin was closed, to break off one of the Buddha's holy teeth. Sorely amazed, the 4 classes of disciples sought to detain him. Yet with a leap of 2 million leagues, he fled away in an instant to the heaven of the 4 kings halfway up Mount Sumeru. But fleet-footed Skanda chased that demon and recovered the tooth, which in a later day was Gavento the monk Tao, Hcian of the land of Han. Thereafter it was handed down from one to another, until crossing to Japan, it Kamido rest in this temple in the reign of Saga Tenno. No, all the people spoke words of censure, saying, "Extraordinary indeed." Still does the body of the Buddha pass everywhere throughout the world, though more than 300 years have elapsed since the great sacred one entered Nirvana, the revered of the world. A shameless thing was the destruction of this auspicious and praiseworthy temple, a sign signifying the ruin of the H6J6 family. How strange it was that the men of Rokuhara were struck down at Bambao within a very short time after, and all the H6J6 perished at Kamakura. Truly there was none but believed. Of such things as it said, in a family where wickedness accumulates, there will surely be abundant misfortunes. Registered Maitreya's heaven. Registered 1 gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, agate, rubies, and cornelian. Percent 9.